Welcome to the Non-Sequitur Show. Continual watching beyond this point may result in terminal face palming and a complete loss of wokeness. You have been warned.
All right. Hey, welcome everyone. This is going to be a fun episode. This is like, kind of like a carryover from our last episode, which was having to do with flat Earth and the state of flat Earth and updates on flat Earth and is flat Earth dead. And I think that was a good segue into this particular show, which is going to be dealing with, with creationism, another topic that, we have to discuss a lot, especially on my other channel as well. And so I brought in a special guest for this one. You might have recognized him. He's been on, were you on Non-Sequitur before or just on my channel? I don't remember.
I've actually never been on before. We've had a few conversations off.
Oh, okay. We've had hangouts. Okay, that's what it was. Yeah, that's what it was. Okay, but we've been on Twitter when you had your other Twitter account.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I brought on Creationist Translator, and what Creationist Translator basically used to do on Twitter, and I kind of think you still do, don't you? Is translate, translate creationist speak, and I always found his tweets to be very entertaining, very educational, and so I kind of wanted to bring him on to kind of go through the state of creationism, and basically has it diminished, has it gone down? I have some other guests coming on. Cindi Lincoln might be joining us. We'll see, and I will put the link to the Skype in the live chat right now of the Patreon link in there if you want to become Patreon or a member. Thank you very much. Native Atheist just became one. I appreciate it. But anyways, Creationist Translator, tell me first of all, like how you got into this, how you got the Twitter thing going, and then we'll just dive into some of the things that have been going on in the creationism world.
Yeah, totally. For me, it was a spark, the desire to start doing what I do on Twitter. Sorry. So it came from a dinner with my family in 2010. I learned that night that my older brother's 15 years older than me, called his son's school to complain that they were teaching evolution. And I asked why, and then it got heated suddenly. Like he was really violent about it, aggressive about it. And his wife asked, well, why can we still got monkeys and all that? And I did my best to explain to them why that was a dumb question, but like I realized that I didn't know a lot about it, so I wanted to know more. And that night I went home and I watched the YouTube debate between David Silverman and Kirk Cameron and Ray Comfort. And just a total dumpster fire. I was just amazed at how dumb and simple Comfort's argument and Cameron's shtick was. Like, so I began binge watching debates. I found Thunderfoot's series, Why People Laugh at Creationists, which I thought was awesome. Led me to Kent Hovind's debates. I watched all of Kent Hovind's debates. I learned his shtick. I watched Bill Ludlow and Aaron Rod just tear him a new one. And then I found the Atheist Experience, Talk Origins, National Center for Science Education, and then eventually Steve McRae, the NonSequitur Show, and the Great Debate Community. Most recently, I found Red's Rhetoric and Professor Dave, and I just learned so much. So I want to thank you guys, not just for having me, but like for the hours of entertainment, like especially Edgar and his experiments.
Well, I don't know if you saw, but I recently had Edgar back on his new and improved version of his intelligence design, and obviously you saw that I had David Silverman on. And people may not know this. I am a member now of David Silverman's. Well, he's like, I don't know. He's the activities director or program director or something, but he's on the board or something for the Atheist for Liberty. And so I've been working with them and talking to them and going into their Discord. And every Wednesday they do a kind of a street epistemological type thing. that I'm interested in. And so, yeah, I kind of been interested in getting more involved in not so much activism, but at least talking to the activists and giving my input, because again, I think that there's different ways to go about educating people on these topics. When it came to young creationism, I did my stuff years ago, but I started realizing, look, I don't have an expertise in these topics, right? I don't have an expertise in biology or geology or anything of that nature. However, I have a basic understanding. So I got my basic stuff out, but then I left it to the actual experts. Like you had mentioned, Dr. Dan, things of that nature. Paul G is really good at it, and who are much better at debunking other creationism than I was. So I kind of took it to a different direction. And that's why I rather like host things like this and the Non-Sequitur Show and bringing people like you that just have a lot more detailed understanding of why we believe that younger creationism is not true, right? And especially how people do ask questions like, well, why are there still monkeys? And it's just like that's that Pratt has been around. It hurts. It really does hurt, because that's such a silly question too. Now that you know how to argue against that and explain to people that, you realize how silly it really was, right?
Why sun go down? Why moon go up? Why
why moon go
come
up?
on.
It's a theory. It's the theory of dropity, according to flat earthers.
Yeah, dropity.
Yeah.
So I have a degree from the University of North Florida in journalism and public health. So that's any contribution I have tonight will be from a journalist perspective. I do a lot of research, I guess. I enjoy reading about it. I'm a glutton for punishment, as somebody said in the comments. But I also like to learn from my mistakes, and that's something that creationists, young Earth creationists especially, just don't seem capable of doing.
You remind me of Tony Reed. I'm sorry, Tony Reed. Remember Tony Reed? He still does videos, but he has a series.
I know the name.
Yeah, he has a series like What I've Learned from Creationism or something like that. And he was a lot like that. He wanted to learn more about creationism, and as he learned more about it, he learned why it was incorrect. And now he takes that information and then puts it in a video in a very succinct, compact form, and he knows this stuff exceptionally well. And so, I mean, I see a similarity there. People that look into the topics and go, okay, maybe there's more to it than this, because when they start looking into the actual claims, there are issues with the science. There's just no question about that. And so people that want to learn about the topic, who want to learn about more science, they can go, okay, I can see where the claim is going wrong here. I see where the hole is in this claim. But it takes a little bit of, I hate to use the word research, but a little bit of at least understanding and education and want to learn about it. And that's what I think a lot of younger creationists fail, when they just don't have that want. Now, I do have some younger creationists in the live chat. I have put it out there in creationist forums. But like, for example, like Willie Mayfan, very, very respectful creationist. I like to treat them in kind that way. There are different levels of everything, right? So, you have the obnoxious younger creationist. They don't tend to come around that much. Like we had an obnoxious flat earther last show, but I tend to get the more respectful creationists, and that's how I kind of want to approach it as much as possible. But we will have people call in due time. So anyways, go on. I've been caffeinated. I'm just rambling, Oh,
you get your coffee now, so you're good. I think you said it. My Twitter page is dedicated to just translating the academic vandalism that I find inherent in young Earth creationism, to expose the underlying logical fallacies. By no means do I consider myself an expert, but I'm trained to be objective as a journalist. I follow the evidence where it leads, and I don't let convictions, primitive religious convictions dictate, what pieces of reality I'm going to accept.
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing. It's like, okay, if we want to learn about reality, where's the sources that we want to go to? And from what I've seen from the young Earth creationists, and correct me if you've seen anything different, but what I've seen is they start with the premise that, look, this has to be true. The Word of God has to be true. Therefore, the Bible has to be true. And we're going to be taking it very, I would say, hyper literally. And therefore, it has to be the case. That's the presupposition that they make. And it's really hard to get around that when you have a presupposition that you're not willing to change. Right? Because then you just change your whole paradigm. Your whole worldview gets changed if you compromise on those presuppositions. And that's very few, I think, creationists actually do that. But I have seen some start from that position, right? I'm not saying it's inconsistent or incoherent. It's not. It's very consistent, actually. But it's very hard. Those are the hardest to try to move from their position, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see all kinds of levels of apologetics. Did I lose you?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was actually arguing, I guess, with somebody on Twitter most recently who was just really thorough. Like, he actually did his research and made it forced me to do more research, trying to figure out, like, I know that's bullshit. Why is that bullshit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me look at it. Let me study it. And eventually, it boils down to his preconceived presuppositions. It's and when you're arguing with a presuppositionalist and they don't tell you that until day 4 of the argument, it's like, why did I waste so much time? And why can't you just say, this is what I believe. No amount of evidence can conflict with this because this is my starting point.
Right. And that may, like I said, that's not inconsistent. It's just closed-minded because they're just saying, look, this is my base. This is my foundation. And so even if you showed me overwhelming evidence, and same thing with flat earth too, right? If you took a flat earther up to, the moon and showed them the earth and everything else, they would still find a way, an ad hoc explanation. They would still find a way to try to wrap their heads around it, but it doesn't change their initial presupposition that, of course, that the flat earth is flat to them. So I think young creation is the same way. Some people are just so ingrained that it must be God's word, then they're not willing to even entertain that their understanding of the science is completely wrong.
Yeah. The another person I was having a debate, I say debate, who I was trying to correct their misunderstandings, but they just weren't having it. We got onto vestigial organs.
Mm-hmm.
And they mentioned they showed an article. I think they showed an article from like National Scientific American about how snakes had vestigial larynxes, and I was like, that sounds bogus.
Mm-hmm.
But like, he tried to use that to explain the fact that the Garden of Eden, the snake. I was like, and I wanted to say, like, look, even if snakes had larynxes, that doesn't mean they could speak English or speak, Aramaic, whatever Adam and Eve spoke, according to you, coining Greek. I don't know. Like just the compartmentalization and the cognitive dissonance. It's funny to watch. I think that's why I do it. It's like, it's hilarious at best.
Well, I mean,
And
even if it was an atavism, even if it was a vestigial situation, in 7,000 years, you're not going to have that much of a change.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and that's another thing, is that, like, what most of them seem to be arguing against is geology, but they're just focused on the biology because that is just a glaring affront to their Genesis narrative. So it's like, you should start with geology, I think, when dealing with creationists most of the times, because it'll invariably lead to that, although it's ultimately futile with most of them because, like I said before, it'll invariably lead to just presuppositionalism.
Yeah, and the problem with geology is that's one of my weakest sciences. I've always maintain that geology, for some reason, is one of my weakest sciences. It doesn't mean that I'm not interested in it. I find geology fascinating. It's just nothing that I took any formalized courses in or read about that much growing up, right? So that's my weak area. However, it's kind of odd that all the PhDs that have been into geology, young creationists that have done their PhD thesis, have always assumed old time and deep time, and had to all their papers are based upon geology going back 4.5 billion years, every one of them, to get their PhD. So they do know the science, they do understand mainstream understandings of these topics, and so for them they have to actually say, well, here's how we see it work in science, blah blah blah, but all of that is wrong because my particular belief is that it's 7,000 years old, and then they try to twist the data to try to conform with a pre-existing belief or presuppositional belief.
Yeah, it's like Answers in Genesis statement of faith. No evidence can be valid if it conflicts with our interpretation of Genesis.
Yeah, now how is that Dostoevsky open-minded? It's just not. It's a very closed-off position. I mean, even I would give them atheist groups to say, look, no amount of evidence can convince me that a God exists. I'm like, okay, then you're just not somebody I want to have a conversation with because you're not open-minded. I mean, look, I'm very much against things like, I believe that dowsing is bullshit, right? I believe that psychic ability is bullshit. I believe that tarot cards is bullshit. Sorry, all you guys people out there that do tarot cards and astrology. I think it's all bullshit. What? I mean, unsub. What? They're gonna be like, I'm gonna unsub. Okay, whatever. But I'm giving my belief on it, right? But you know what? You show me under controlled circumstances and you make accurate predictions, then I'm going to think something's to it. I'm not going to be able to explain what it is, but I'll be like, okay, there's something to this worth investigating. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's astrology drives me crazy because I used to work with an office full of people that believed in it, and they'd be like, "Oh, Mercury's in retrograde." I'm like, "Do you know what that means? Like, what does it mean for a planet to be in retrograde?" And they're like, "I don't know." I'm like, and then I try to explain it to them, and I'm bad at explaining generally. Maybe that's why I don't
Do a
convince a lot of
diagram. Yeah,
creationists.
pictures.
Yeah, but like the outside of a track, when people are running track, like the guy on the outside can be running faster, but the guy on the inside, he could be running just a little bit slower, but still go around faster just because he's on the inside.
Yeah, well, it's funny, like
Centrifugal and centripetal.
Centripetal, yeah. My roommate, who I adore, is in astrology, and we don't talk about it much. But look, it's no harm, no foul, right? I mean,
Yeah.
she's not going around trying to.
What's the damage,
And so it's not. It's a non-issue, right? She knows I think it's
Right.
bullshit, and she knows. I know that she believes it. Okay, that's fine, right? I mean, live and let live. It's the people that I think, the ones I would go after is the people that think astrology is true, and then I think I should say use it and then know it's bullshit and then try to fleece people out of money. That bothers me. Those people that actually believe, it's bullshit that are doing it, they're worse than the people that actually believe it's true, but not by much. I mean, even the people that think it's true or that are earning money from it, I do take issue with, obviously, because I think it's, basically, it's not grifting in a way because, again, they honestly believe it, but it is taking advantage, I think, somewhat of people that are naive in these particular topics. But the ones that know it's bullshit and do it, far worse,
Yeah, yeah. I remember one of the last times I was at a flea market. There's this like long, shaggy haired like teenager, like 18, 19 maybe, like talking to these two girls about chemtrails. And I was like, what?
Is that
I was
still
just
a
walking
thing?
by, but I
Like,
was like,
seriously?
really? Like, what is that?
Is that still a thing? I thought that died out. I mean, people
I
are
know,
like,
me
okay, this
too.
is stupid. We're gonna let this one go.
That's bad. Do you want to get into the?
Yeah, go ahead and dive into it. I'm gonna be giving out. People are asking for like the numbers. Like, it's a Skype call, and so I'll put the link to the Skype in the video. Excuse me, in the live chat, and I'll pin it in a few when creation. Do you want me to call you by your first name, by the way? It's public.
You can call me Chandler. It's
Chandler.
fine.
Okay, Chandler. When Chandler gets done with a few things we want to like do updates on.
Yeah. So 2022 marks a centenary that I think is worth celebrating. The defeat of Kentucky's House Bill 191. It was introduced into the Kentucky General Assembly on January 23rd, 1922, so 100 years ago. The bill would have prohibited, quote, the teaching in public schools and other public institutions of learning Darwinism, atheism, agnosticism, or evolution as it pertains to the origin of man. Offending instructors would have been fined $50,000 to $5,000, which is like $800 to $80,000 today, and jail time, like up to a year. And that was the first of many battles. There's an article back in March by Glenn Branch, the deputy director of the National Center for Science Education. It goes through the last 100 years of fighting creationism, and it's kind of a sadomasochistic journey through time. I don't know, it's fun to read all the victories, I guess, from 1922 all the way up to Arkansas's House Bill 1701, which was introduced last year in 2021. And that bill would have allowed teachers in the state's public and open enrollment charter schools to teach creationism as a theory of how the earth came to exist. Which
these have all been shot down. Like every, from my understanding, every single time they've brought this in front of a House committee or a local level government, school board, every single time, I don't think one has gone through, has it? I've heard.
No, and what's scary about the Arkansas bill is that it failed by one vote, and that's because like the guy didn't show up or something.
That is actually pretty scary, and I think those things would actually go to more of a federal court. I think that'd be overturned. I think there's a huge issue, okay, because there's no such thing as teach the controversy when it comes to things like this. There's no controversy, right?
Right.
It just is none. It's just a group of people that have their own personal beliefs, and unfortunately, their beliefs don't coincide with mainstream science. I don't think they would question that. I think they would agree with that. But that doesn't give them the right to teach that in a public school system. Now, again, in private school, it's a different situation. I'm not thrilled with it, But unfortunately, if you want to have a private school and you have, okay with the government and the kids go to the private school, you could basically teach them anything you want at that point. I get that and you still have a basic curriculum as well. But I understand they're allowed to go beyond that. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is, right? But in public school, there is no right for that. There is no, I mean, you can't say, look, I happen to believe that square circles exist. I want that taught in high school geometry. They're going to look at you like you're just out to lunch, right?
Absolutely. That article is it's on this website called Religious Dispatches, which is a nonprofit religious magazine. But if you want to read it, I can put the link.
Yeah, give me the link and I'll put it in the video description.
Yeah. They're not affiliated with any religious institution. It was the brainchild of religious and theology professors. It was launched in 2008 as like a counter voice to the religious right during the Bush administration, but it was nominated for some Webby Awards. So they seem all right. There's that link for you.
All right. I received it.
And then I just had a couple stats I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, go for it.
They're from the Penn State's McCourtney Institute for Democracy. There's a study of high school biology teachers conducted in 2019. It showed that more than 16% of teachers reported experiencing pressure from outside the classroom regarding teaching evolution. But the number of class hours devoted to evolution has also increased by 25%. So there might be some correlation there. People just don't want to hear. Parents, some parents don't want to hear more about it. They just leave it alone. It's critical race theory for Adam and Eve. I don't know.
Yeah, it kind of is. What happened in my video there? Okay, I'll figure it out. Okay, do your thing. I got this.
Yeah. 67% of those same teachers reported emphasizing the broad scientific consensus on evolution while not giving any credence to creationism, which was up from 67% this year, and it was up from 51% in 2007. So big changes. And then I had a couple of organizations I wanted to talk about, like the Institute for Creation Research, ICR. They're like one of their big news events is that they changed their logo. It went from an orbital cloud to a double helix. Which I always think is funny when creationists like just use science.
Well, you think that they do that? You think they do that to try to normalize things? Because there's certain things that even a creationist just can't seem to get around, right? If a creationist came out there and said, "Hey, look, I don't even believe DNA is a double helix. I think it is, I don't know, whatever geometric shape. It's a tetrahedron.
It's a dodecahedron.
Yeah, it's a dodecahedron. Something really. It's a buckyball.
It's a fushigi. You remember?
Yeah, I remember the fushigi. Yeah, the mystical ball of wonder or something.
Magic.
But yeah, I don't. I think that they try to implement things that they just cannot change because again they would be looking even just silly. But that's what I think it is. I think it's trying to ingratiate in the mainstream to try to make it. Oh, we're not as fringe as you think. We understand. Yes, DNA is a double helix. But let's explain why. We're all descended from Adam and Eve only 7,000 years ago. I mean, Dr. Nathaniel Jeanson just came out with a new book called Trace, where he tries to argue that based upon, I think it is genetic mutation rates of the D loop in mTNA, we are only 7,000 years old. And it just, of course, his methodology is flawed, clearly, but I think that they try to do that, to implement what we know about science, and then take bits and pieces out of research. And say, oh, look, this paper says this, but they're either completely, recontextualizing it, or just, I think blatantly some of them lie about it. But
Oh yeah, well that's in their mission statement, which actually ICR did reform their mission statement, and some of the changes are that their priority is to respect the biblical narrative, which obviously underpins everything else they do. But there's a couple of funny quotes in their mission statement which reflect their confirmation bias. Oppose the deification of nature by exposing Darwinian selectionism as an idolatrous worldview. Darwinian
Well,
selectionism.
you know what's so funny is it's not a phrase I would really ever use, but I mean, I don't accept Darwinism because Darwinism to me, and again, these are all just semantics, right? But Darwinism,
Mm.
something that went out in like the 20th century, the 19th century. It was never, never really a confirmed model. Darwinism had some issues with it, but it was basically at least an idea of, okay, about natural selection, about having reproduction that had been more than the offspring, that could survive kind of thing, and all these different things to it. Fine. But but in 2022, the theory of evolution is the modern evolutionary synthesis combined with descent with modification, right? And so
It
that
doesn't belong to Darwin
it
anymore.
doesn't belong to Darwin.
Yeah.
It's like saying, oh, well, we're talking about Newtonian physics, but then we're doing it with black holes. We'd use, Einstein's field tensor equations and that nature. Doesn't mean that the Newtonian physics was completely wrong, but Darwinism did have errors to it. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. But they keep bringing that back, right? They're like using outdated and antiquated science from 150 years ago to try to say, oh, look, because Darwinism is wrong, Darwin got some stuff wrong. Therefore, evolution is completely wrong. It's like, get up to date, right?
Right, and then they'll use it as a hammer. Like, oh, why are you trying to backpedal from Darwin?
Mm-hmm.
That's your poster boy. That's your. It's like,
but
you
I don't know any science that
gonna beat up that straw man,
Yeah, I mean, look, whenever you have some older scientists, we appreciate that they've done to contribute to science. But yes, they've always got things wrong because they didn't have the knowledge we have now.
Yeah, they don't seem to understand the tentative nature of science. Learning from your mistakes, really.
Right. Right.
Um,
But they have to do that, right? They have to prey on the fact that there are things in science that science is always going to get wrong until it acquires new knowledge. But once it does, it usually solidified in that one area, right? So it usually gets, like be concrete in certain areas. And then, the more detailed and more technical, then they not quite sure. But as science grows, those areas become now concrete, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Because I don't see us going back and revising anything like, as far as like the theory of gravity. Einstein's equations work. Doesn't mean that there's not going to be modified field equations. Doesn't mean there's not going to be quantum loop gravity. Doesn't mean there's not going to be something later on. It just means that for the theory as itself, it works, and we could use it, and we'll probably always be able to use it.
Yeah, I remember when Ray Comfort called into the Atheist Experience. I mean, that was garbage. But he was like saying, "Oh, I'm going to do my accent here. Well, the age of the Earth just changes all the time. Like, it doesn't just arbitrarily, wildly change. The margin of error gets smaller and smaller. We improve on our knowledge, and it gets better and better and more refined. Like that's it. Like,
Well, that's exactly what it is. The age of the Earth has not changed. It just means that, okay, so for the audience, look, we'll say, like, look, we'll assume the Earth wasn't created yesterday, right? Not the old phallus hypothesis, right? Last Wednesday,
right? Last Thursdayism.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it, Wednesday, Thursday. But yeah, we generally have a presupposition that it wasn't created yesterday, right? Okay, and it probably isn't infinite, okay, but it could be. But anyways, even if it was, it's something in that range, right? It's something between a second ago, a millisecond ago, or Planck's time, and then all the way to infinity. That is your full range. It cannot be anything more or less than that, okay? But we also say, okay, well, based upon our science, it has to be within, as far as the Earth, we'll put it between 4 and 5 billion years, give or take, or we'll start off even a billion years, a billion, between 1 billion and 13 billion, because that's the age of the universe, right? And then we start just getting closer and closer to what we think narrowing that range down, right? So right now we're about 4.5 billion years, plus or minus a couple hundred million years. That just means that the range has gotten smaller. Nobody's going to say that the Earth is 5 days old, right? There's nothing about science that gives an indication of 5 days old. That's outside the range of what we find in all the different constellances of the sciences. That's all. That's what science does. It just gets a better range. And Ray Comfort, I think, does understand that. I think he's just dishonest.
You think he's intentionally dishonest?
I think Ray Comfort is intentionally dishonest. Yeah, and again, let me put it out there: not all younger creationists are intentionally dishonest. Like people, I tagged him. I don't know if you ever watch it, but I get along with Sarfati just fine. People have issues with Dr. Sarfati, but he's brilliant. The guy knows his stuff. I mean, he's a legit PhD in biochemistry, and he's a chess master. And I think he just really does believe, what he believes. I don't find him to be dishonest, to me at least. And so yeah, I can get along with somebody like that. But when it comes to like, Ken Hovind, yeah, I think he's completely dishonest, right? Because he has a PhD, but he's Dr.
Yeah,
Hovind.
he like with him, it's just glaringly. I mean, he's everything about him is just his delivery, his go-to arguments. Like with Ray Comfort, it's harder to detect his dishonesty because he's so nice about it. Like he's so dumb
But look at
and
his
nice
edits.
at the same time.
But look at how he does his videos. They're Frankenstein cuts.
Oh,
They're
well,
just
yeah,
honest editing.
intellectually dishonest,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But like, is he like he likes, I don't know.
I think he believes
something
it.
lovable about him. I don't know what it is, but
he's personable, I guess, right? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, he doesn't come across as a complete, dick like some people do. He's personable.
Like I can't stand him,
but you're right,
would
though.
I have a beer with him? I don't know.
But you got to admit, when he and Kirk Cameron, and Silverman, well, it wasn't Silverman, by the way. Wasn't it Brian Sapient and the Rational Response?
Oh, it wasn't David Silverman, was it?
Yeah, I was
Brian
about
Sapient,
the
Rational Response
Brian
Squad.
Sapient just recently blocked me a few weeks ago. I've known that guy for years, right? I've known Brian for years. He's been on my show. He blocked me because I was giving him actual philosophy stuff. He's like, oh, well, my group doesn't do that. My group does this. And I'm like, okay, but my information is not wrong. But he's like, yeah, but my group. I'm like, yeah, but you're just being as intellectually dishonest as theists at this point.
And I think that's what pisses him off. Yep.
Yeah, but I'm honest about that. I don't like people doing that. It's like
it's the same style of argument.
It's
like
the same thing, man. You've become what you hate, and I detest that. And I have nothing against Brian. I really don't. But it was the Rational Response Squad that did that with King Crocoduck. Or something upside, not King Crocoduck.
The porn star.
Yeah, she became a porn star. I don't remember her name.
Super nice though.
Yeah, everybody says she's really nice. But it was
not in that debate. She was kind of
they were vicious.
It was a little livid, yeah. But
it
that was the first thing I watched after that heated discussion with my parents. So it was really
so
cathartic.
Good. It was so good. King Crocoduck just made his name off that. Kirk Cameron's like, we should have a crocoduck, and people are like, oh God, just shut up, just stop.
Yeah, like, what is the law of monophily? Is that a
Oh, I've been told that doesn't exist. Even though it's very hard to find about Meyer's law of monophily,
it's even kind of hard to explain too.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of get it. Like, you can't evolve out of your ancestry,
right? It's never really been formulated that I can find, though. It's more of a principle. Meyer from himself, what I've read, he didn't like formal laws. In biology, he didn't like them, and so even Meyer's law of monophily these things were kind of parodies to kind of go, hey, you don't like laws, but here's one that is something that is the case, that you cannot grow out of your historical ancestry or in your cladistics. So that's when I was trying to find out the history of that particular law. That's what I kind of found out, and I could be way off on it, but I've never seen it really formalized anywhere other than it was just he didn't like formalizations of laws in biology. So I think it was kind of a slight to him, but not in a bad way. It was just kind of a, hey, you don't like it, but here's one, Maybe they're gonna find a biologist that can kind of weigh in on that.
Yeah. Also with ICR, my last point on them was that I'd heard allusions to challenges to their leadership position, which they might be on the horizon.
For ICR?
Yeah, not just for AIG, but also for ICR.
I know they share a lot of their scholars, right? I've seen Dr. Humphreys write for both of them. Safadi works with Creationist Ministries International, which, by the way, I will admit, and again, I try to be fair. People should know that about me. I don't crap over everything just for the sake of crapping on people. I've seen Creationist Ministry actually do this, where they've actually said, yes, this is a bad argument. Creationists should not use this. I applaud that. I really do, because Answer to Genesis, they'll go, oh, this is they won't say it's a horrible, they'll put it out there. Hey, here it is. And then kind of just let it float out there, but not ever tell anybody, yeah, this is a complete, BS argument. AIG, I don't think has any integrity whatsoever when it comes to that.
Yeah, I think ICR is kind of distancing themselves from CMI and AIG with pieces of their new statement of faith. They're kind of on the outskirts. But I mean, still just as strident and, presuppositionalist and confirmation bias with the statement of faith. But I don't know, you want to segue to AIG?
Yeah, let's do that. And by the way, let me welcome some of my mods that dropped by, April and Kano.
Hello, April and Kino.
Kano.
She got Browner.
She got called into work today. But she actually puts the show on where she's working, and so the coworkers can listen to it as well. So if anybody's working there with Kano, welcome.
She does her podcast at her job.
No, she goes to the job and then she puts this podcast on while she works.
Oh, okay. Got it.
You know how people listen to music at work, stuff like that. She puts this on. And
so
nice. They've kind of been keeping up with the stuff for quite some time. Because I've known her for 15 years. I live with her.
Hello, coworkers, if they're listening.
And Kano is wonderful. Coworkers, you know, give her a raise, man. Give her a raise.
Give her a drink.
Give her yes. You know, it's funny. If she comes home, I always like, hey, you want a beer? You want some wine? Do you need a drink? You
know. So with AIG, I was hearing the same things regarding challenges to their leadership position, specifically a post-ham world, which I don't know. I kind of like guilty conscience, guilty admission. I got like a little bit of tinge. What's the word
for what?
I got a bit of glee from hearing post-ham world.
I don't know. I mean, it's like, a little bit of a.
It's
little
bad,
bit of,
but
yeah. I mean, is he leaving? Is he done? I mean, I didn't know anything about that.
Well, when I read post-ham world, I like immediately thought like maybe he might be dying. So no, that's bad of me. But
yeah, no, I don't want the guy.
He's getting old too. Yeah,
he's not like Hovind. Hovind, I think, is just so evil. I don't think Ken Ham is evil. I think he's just completely misled. I think he's greedy.
He's kind of a blend of Kent Hovind and Ray Comfort. Like he's got the charisma of Ray Comfort, but he's as dishonest as Kent Hovind. So bam.
Yeah, no, I can kind of go with that.
Ken Ham. So with AIG, I think part of the post-ham world stuff it pertains to like his exorbitant price tag on the Ark Museum, the park. People saying it wasn't the best use of money, like no shit.
That's my layout, by the way. That is the rainbow. That's
beautiful.
Yes, it's supposed to represent the covenant that God had made, that there never be a flood. Why there
no more floods.
But to me, it really does represent gay pride. And I was like, they're like, oh, we're gonna try to take this back, but that did not work out well for them. I think it.
Oh no, it's beautiful. I love it. Yeah. I love everything about that.
Yeah, no, I do too. I like this color. I think it's great.
Monument to ignorance.
I think it's wonderful that they made it into a gay pride thing. And I got to tell you, if an atheist organization ever took over the Ark and made it one of their headquarters, I would probably donate to that.
God.
I would probably actually donate to that, even if it was ones I hated. Even if it was like atheist, what is it? AA, American Atheist, who I think is just ridiculous. I would even donate to them if they took that over. It would
I like how all the flattering shots of the Ark Park do not show the giant buildings jutting out of the back of it.
The concrete, the trusses, the fact that there's no way it would be seaworthy, the fact that they had to use modern technology to even make them close to, and they only have like what, I don't know, 2 dozen exhibits. It's nothing of any consequence. The gift shop,
so much empty space.
Yeah,
so much.
Yeah, so much empty space. It's like, because obviously you have building requirements and all these other things for permits. It's basically one big gift shop. That's all it is. And it didn't bring any revenue to the town. The town was upset, from what I understand. Williamsburg.
That's sad. So much back in taxes, and then the citizens got screwed.
Yeah, well, who would have thunk, right?
Apparently they're celebrating their 10 millionth guest at the Ark Museum this year somehow. And like, if you do the math, that's like 4,500 people a day since they opened in 2016. And like, that doesn't seem right to me. I don't know if that's right.
Well, okay, the numbers, I haven't looked at the numbers for a while. I remember when it first opened, there was obviously, some big numbers and things of that nature. But I remember the graphs, and they were always just declining.
Yeah. So like, I don't know, maybe
they don't have to publish them. I guess they're not public record.
So they could just straight up lie about them.
Probably. Yeah, they could. I mean, like I said, I don't think there's any stipulation for them to actually make those.
Or maybe they're counting like every time an employee clocked in and clocked out. Like,
well, also, I think it's a lot of repeat. Again, I don't, they're not like unique, tourists there. I think there are a lot of people that just go there more than once. Why? I don't know what you could see more than once. I've seen videos of people going through and tour it. I know Aaron Raw has toured it. I think Gutsick Gibbon. I can't always pronounce her name wrong. She's toured it. And so Yeah, I would be like, what would be the point? It's like even their like the exhibits they have is like, this is supposed to be what is this? This is this I don't know, Archaeopteryx? Is this what is this this thing here? You know,
It's a kind.
It's a kind of what?
Who knows?
It doesn't have feathers. You know.
They're also AIG's also jumping in on the the Roe v. Wade fight. And I found a quote from Ken Ham. It said, "While we would applaud this decision and thank God for it, legislation will never cure man's sin problem." And that just sums up his whole game.
Well, we will do some episode on Roe v. Wade. Somebody was all pissed off that we weren't talking about Roe v. Wade, and we had decided to do another thing with instead with Jim Jules, because it was a matter of time element. Plus, I wanted to do more research on the Roe v. Wade's, because of course I want to do it justice, right? But of course they're like, "Oh well, your priorities are messed up." I'm like, "Look, man, this is a show that we're going to go with what we're going to go with. Roe v. Wade is not going anywhere right now. Yes, it's going to be a big issue. SCOTUS has not ruled anything yet, so it's not like it's a one of those things that has a time constraint to it. It's not ephemeral. It's going to be there. Relax, people. We'll get to Roe v. Wade. It's a huge issue, and I think very strongly about that. I do think SCOTUS is messing up. I think that the fact that we put in judicial justices that are just biased and they're using their own personal bias, yes. But that's another topic, though.
Yeah, totally. Some of the other headlines from AIG I thought were funny. Study finds God's design for marriage is best. Like, what? Is that really? And
really?
Yeah.
Because I mean, the divorce rate's pretty damn high, is it not?
Exactly. Like, I know so many of my friends that have already gotten divorced like multiple times. My 3 siblings have been married and divorced 9 times.
How many times have Ken Hovind been married? Sorry, Cindi. How many times? I mean, come on. I don't think that's a good argument. In fact, I had this discussion the other day on marriage, and it was on Crows of Judgment channel, if you know who he is. Really good discussion with Crow, and one of the things that came up was that very thing. Should marriage be called civil unions? Should the state have any say in it? Is it a secular thing? And my argument is like, look, marriage is just like Christmas. Christmas is a secular holiday. You don't have to believe Jesus was the son of God to celebrate Christmas. You just don't. And you don't have to have any religious affiliation to have marriage. It's just become secular. You don't need to call it civil union. It's just fucking marriage, you know?
Yeah, if it's recognized by the government, by the state, like, then who gives a shit if the church validates it? I don't need their validation.
Couldn't care less. Couldn't freaking care less.
Thank you for saying couldn't. A lot of people say could care less, and supposedly
I've watched Word. I've listened to Word Crimes by Weird Al Yankovic. So
Oh man, I got to talk to Weird Al Yankovic on the phone one time.
Yeah.
My sister, my older sister, used to model for like Hawaiian Tropics and Venus Swimwear and all kinds of cool stuff. And she would get to go to like parties with celebrities. So she was at a party with Weird Al Yankovic. I don't even know how to say it. And he called me a couple days later. So I picked up the phone. He's like, "Hey, this is Weird Al. Is Nicole there?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then I went and got her. So that was. I said yeah to Weird Al. I was like starstruck, didn't know what to say.
I'll tell you my experience there. In 7th grade, I had a friend. His name was Darren. I think his last name was Matovich or something. But he was Weird Al's cousin, and he had brought in a demo tape. This was way back when. It had to be like Dr. Demento days, I guess, right? Because when was I in junior high? I was in 7th grade, whatever year that was, right? And it
graduated a couple of years before me.
Yeah, and I remember the song. It was something like Mr. Fong's Iron Lung. And it was the funniest thing we've ever heard. And we're like, holy shit, this guy's talented, right? And of course, he ended up being, like the all-time greatest, parody songwriter in history. What was it?
Slash accordion player.
What was it called? Mr. Frog's Iron Lung or something. I have to look it up.
It sounds like you're already looking it up, so yeah,
I'm looking it up. Somebody might know the song.
Iron Lung.
But anyways, we can continue on. That was my story, yeah. So I went. We knew who Weird Al was before he was even famous.
Yeah, so I wanted to find more.
Mr. Frump in the Iron Lung. That's what it was called.
Mr. Frump in the Iron Lung.
Yeah. And so that was way back when. I'm pretty sure that was it. It's like original demo tape.
Wow. Well, that sounds like nice treasure to have, if you can find it. I wanted to find more articles, but then I realized that they were all just being pulled from Ken Ham's blog. So I was like, fuck that. I'm not going to waste my time. So I wanted to talk about Pure Flix, which is like, it's #1 ranked Christian streaming service. You can download it on your Roku.
Oh, I was in 8th grade. It was 8th grade.
8th grade.
Yeah, because it was released in 1983, and I started 9th grade in 1984. Because I graduated in 87.
Wow, I was born in 1984.
Well, you're youngins.
A little bit. My wife and I recently went to Portugal, and we were we went on a beer tour. We were the oldest people in the beer tour, and that was the first time that's ever happened. So we're like, oh, okay, we've gotten there.
Yeah. No, actually, you know what? I still think it was 7th, even though it was released in 83. We had the original demo before it was even released, so that makes sense.
It's a lot of good music from the 80s.
Oh.
That is my decade of music.
I hated 80s music, man.
Really?
Oh, dude. You know, even the last time I go down to Orange County, like the area where I kind of like spent my formative years, they still were playing the same shit. Depeche Mode, R.E.M., Tears for Fears. It's like nothing had freaking changed. I swear to God, I thought I was in the Matrix. I was like, have they written new code? Have they done anything? Have they progressed? Because now it's considered, classic music. So, it's like,
oh, right.
So wait a minute here. In 40 years or whatever it's been, it's 30 years. It's like, has not changed. I'm like, no.
You can't just get the Billboard top ones, though. You got to like dive in a little bit, get in there. Like, I don't know. I was going to say 70s. Taylor Dane, but she was totally... Oh, really?
Yeah, 70s was mine. Oh, yeah. ABBA.
Jimi Hendrix.
Deep Purple, Rainbow, Black Sabbath, Ozzy. Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
That's good stuff, too. So pureflix.com, the #1 ranked Christian streaming service. I suspect that they're going to get more popular. They just seem to have this endless flow of money to make these just shitty movies. Such great movies like Highway to Heaven, 90 Minutes in Heaven, My Daddy is in Heaven, Fishes and Loaves, Heaven Sent, Sunrise in Heaven, Bible Man, a new animated version.
That I remember Bible Man.
I have the VHS.
Yeah, not the animated version, the live version.
Yeah, no, I have the live action VHS.
Yeah.
In my other room. If you don't believe me, I will tear off these headphones and go.
No, I remember. It was a real thing.
Yeah, and it's so bad. Also on the list of their streaming movies was 3 Ninjas Kick Back, which was really confusing.
Bible Man reminded me of Electra Woman and Dyna Girl without the hotness. I don't know if you remember. What was her name? Deidre Hall, and I can't remember the other one. Remember Electra Woman and Dyna Girl? I had a crush on Dyna Girl. Yeah, that was. Go look up Electra Woman and Dyna Girl. You'll see what I'm talking about.
Electra Woman and Dyna Girl.
Yeah, it was Deidre Hall, but I don't remember what Dyna Girl's name was. But she was so cute.
76.
Yeah, we're going back a ways.
Yeah. 3 Ninjas though, that was my jam because I did.
Judy Strangest. Yeah, Judy Strangest. Yeah, she was so pretty.
Strangest and Deidre Hall.
Yeah.
Okay.
So pretty. She's still alive. I mean, she ain't dead. She's 72, but yeah. She's also she was also in a show called Room 222, and my next door neighbor was in that show, Raymond Beerite.
Oh, nice. Mm-hmm. Cool. That's on the list now. I'm gonna have to watch me some Electra Woman and Dyna Girl.
Yeah, he played the vice principal in Room 222. He's literally I learned to swim in his pool. His wife was in Star Trek.
Oh, really?
So yeah, City in the Clouds. She played the head troglodyte, but Raymond Beerite was very, very a big actor back in the days. He was like in a drama and strain movie. He was in a lot of different shows. A very nice guy. I mean, really, really nice guy. But so my family was all into this stuff, right? We watched these things, and we knew Raymond, and we lived outside Burbank. So.
Oh, for some reason I thought you were like, you've never lived on the East Coast?
Connecticut, does that count?
No,
it's New England, isn't it? It's close.
Yeah, I guess.
I lived in Florida. I lived in Orlando.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that totally counts.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
do it again. Not recommended.
No. Oh, my wife and I left Florida. I'm happy to be gone from Florida. It's like it felt like Mars. Everything is just flat and just far away.
It's humid as hell. The weather's
So
weird.
humid. It's a literal swamp.
I remember, and I know this has nothing to do with creationism, but welcome to my show. It's how it goes. I remember, seriously, like in boot camp, when I first got to Orlando, it was 1987, I believe it was. And yeah, it was October 26, 1987 is when I first got there. And there was like a sidewalk. And on one side of the sidewalk, it was like heavy freaking rain. And then when I was standing, it was sunshine and perfectly clear.
Mm-hmm.
It was the oddest thing. I mean, you could see this line, like the clouds, perfectly,
Welcome to Florida.
Sky, perfect sky. And then right there was these gray clouds, and then you could see the rain. You're like, rain, no rain, rain. It was bizarre.
Were there a couple alligators in the distance?
No,
too?
I never saw an alligator. No, I saw.
Really?
I saw cockroaches that could literally carry you away.
The water bugs, yes.
Yeah, they're water bugs.
God.
Yeah, they're not true cockroaches. They actually are water bugs. But those they were that big.
They're enormous. My mom used to travel to Jacksonville, Florida, where she would work and then visit us on the weekends in Atlanta. And every time she would bring home a couple of water bugs in her suitcase.
Yeah, we call them water beetles, but yeah, they were things were massive. We have something even worse down here where I'm at. I don't know if you've ever seen one, but have you seen a date palm beetle?
Date palm beetle, no.
Yeah, while you're talking, I'll put one up for the outside if they've never seen before. Because if I'm going to accept creationism, I'll accept that the date palm beetle was created by a being called Satan. I might be able to buy that. Yeah, they're really, really ugly, and they're mean, and they will bite. And
kind of looks like a dung beetle, but it's got like a horn at the end.
Yeah,
that looks mean.
Yeah, and they're not even the worst of them. I think they're a type of weevil, if I'm not mistaken.
Speaking of intelligently designed creatures, do you know what a peacock mantis shrimp is?
It sounds familiar for some reason.
I think it's called the thumb splitter. It's like it's got its hands tucked into.
Yeah, the one that can, like, shoots hot steam or something, or can crush. What does it do? It has a special.
Not the pistol shrimp. So there's a pistol shrimp which can shoot like hot steam at like 300 degrees or something. I don't know, like something ridiculous. But then there's the peacock mantis shrimp, which is bigger than the pistol shrimp, but it's got its hands locked into its chest, and it can shoot them out with like the strength of a gun. And it can bust aquariums. It can knock off people's thumbs. So that's why it's called the thumb splitter. It's known for breaking the aquarium that it's in. Those things are crazy. Plus they have like trichromatic vision, which makes their vision like really intense. Seeing lots of neons.
There we go. I put it on the screen for people. I'm sorry, that's one ugly beetle.
Yeah. A date palm.
Then there's one. Have you ever seen a potato? I mean, what we used to call potato bug. Potato beetle. Bug. Yeah, it's not the roly-poly. It's not the roly-poly. Roly-poly is one of the, I think one of the
pill bug.
It's a pill bug. Those are one of the very few actual crustaceans that live on land. But there's what was actually we called a potato bug, and there's different names for it. But it's called the Jerusalem cricket.
It looks like the monster from Predator.
I truly think that it is. Like I said, if somebody's going to convince me about creationism and that Satan exists, it is going to be these creatures, because I mean they're just god awful ugly. I mean, here we go. And I mad respect for entomologists and people like bugs.
I feel like that was in one of those like cheesy 60s black and white monster movies.
Oh,
I feel like I've seen that before.
Look at that. Yeah, look at this. Look at this thing. It's oh my god, that is like so ugly. and don't tell me beauty's in the eye of the beholder, because I'm sorry. That no. But anyways, all right. Sorry guys, off topic, but whatever.
All right.
That's not secular for you.
So also we were talking about movies. Is Genesis History is getting a sequel? I don't know if anybody saw that. Probably not.
That was Kent Hovind's kid movie, right?
It was produced, written, and directed by Thomas Purefoy Jr.
But I thought Eric Hovind was promoting that movie.
That was another one. It's like the Genesis movie, or it's close. It's close to Is Genesis History.
Okay.
But it's not the Kent not the Eric Hovind movie.
Okay.
I wonder if are they still doing okay, Eric and Kent? I think they're. I mean, I know they split. I don't know if they're like.
I asked Cindy a little bit about it, but it's who the heck knows, right? You know.
Mhm.
And again, I felt bad for Eric Hovind. I really do. I think that he was trying to protect his mom. I think that he believes this stuff. I have no idea. I don't know, but I mean, do I find him to be intellectually dishonest? Yes. I've talked to Eric a few times.
Really?
Yeah, he's been on. Was on my original, my other channel a couple times.
Yeah.
Back
Oh,
when.
right. Yeah. I
And he's just very obfuscating. And to me, when somebody obfuscates, I don't take them very seriously as far as being, intellectually honest. I mean, to me, they're trying to hide something. Even Saiten, who I get along with just fine, Saiten obfuscates like big time. But I think he does it on purpose because he wants to shut the mouth of the unbeliever because he uses presuppositional argumentation. If you remember Bonson saying, "Oh yes, presuppositionism is just literally to shut the mouth of the non-believer," and I think he utilizes that. I think it's a form of trolling. But he does believe his stuff. I'm absolutely convinced Saiten believes his stuff, and I think that Eric probably does too. But I think there's a disconnect in his mind of how that this can be true, and yet his father is such a piece of crap.
It's like Kirk Cameron saying, "You have to circumnavigate around the person's intellect." Like, what does that mean?
I wish I knew.
Yeah, with Eric Hovind, like I feel bad because like I've heard stories about like his Kent being the dad that he is, very aggressive in his teaching methods, and I feel bad about Eric in that respect, but he does the same shtick. Like he's just as dishonest as his dad. That presuppositional garbage. He's not good at debating. That's why he uses presup just to shut it down. Like, oh, how do you know that? How do you know that? How do you know that? You can't even have a conversation with him, or at least I feel like I couldn't, because we would just get stuck in a loop and on repeat.
It's very difficult, especially when you're starting with that presuppositionalism, which I've been arguing against for a very long time. By the way, do you have the link to the Skype thing? I can't seem to find it for some reason. Maybe because it's you called me. I don't know. Do you have a join link that I can put out?
I don't. I don't use Skype a lot, so
if you go to add participant, usually there's a thing down there at the bottom that says add participant.
Where is add participant? You can walk me through this while we're.
All right, so when you're in the call,
there we go.
On the very bottom left, it says add participants and twin cam. And then when I go to add participant, it just says add the call, but I would have to add it manually. There's usually a link that says, a link you give out to people. Do you see it?
No, I apologize. I am looking though.
Oops. I just accidentally hit the wrong. let me call you. Let me call you. That way I can get the link. I think
okay.
It's on that. Okay. Okay, let's see if that works. Is your camera on? Okay, let me see if this updated here. I might have to refresh there. Well, go on, continue on while I figure out how to get the link.
Yeah,
it's still not showing the link. It's weird. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
we're
frozen.
Oh, wonderful.
I'll fix it. Don't worry. I got you.
Okay. So the Is Genesis History sequel. It is it's titled Mountains After the Flood. It was produced, written, and directed by the same guy, Thomas Purefoy Jr., who did the first one. So watch out for this triple threat. A quote from the website that I thought was funny. It feels strangely more complex than our first film. Like, well, yeah. Generally, sequels are supposed to be more complex than the original. But also, I think the reason that it probably feels more complex is that they're encountering more and more problems trying to get it to make sense, like believable.
Yeah, well, again, like the heat problem is something they can't get around.
Right, yeah. Things that they can't get around, they have to just manufacture these ad hoc or post hoc rationalizations. and spending a lot of time and CGI money doing it. Dr. Joel Duff is a creationist and YouTuber. The quote from him I thought was funny. The most important development in creationism within 2022, assuming it's released. So I don't know. They really have to pretend like the last movie had like more of an earth-shattering effect than it really did. If you look at the website, I mean, you thought it was another movie, so I doubt anybody.
I haven't watched
it.
any of those movies. I couldn't stand to watch one of those movies. It just wouldn't pique my interest at all.
Fishes and Loaves, Cola Heaven Sent. That did not pique your interest. Or I guess you don't have pureflix.com. Come on.
Wait, what was that called?
I thought it was a porn site when I first heard it. It's pureflix.com, Flix. And yeah, it's just the number one Christian streaming site. They just happen to have like a couple of 90s movies like Three Ninjas or Three Ninjas Kick Back. So that's all I had about the sequel to that movie. I don't know, like I never saw it, so I just thought it was funny they were making a sequel, and that they're touting the last one like it had an impact. One of the other things I saw was the 2022 season of Creation. It's not evidently tied to creationism. It's like it's an ecumenical celebration sponsored by a global coalition of Catholics. It begins September 1st and then ends on October 4th. September 1st is the World Day of Prayer, and October 4th is the Feast of St. Francis of Assisi. It's a global initiative uniting Christians in prayer to act against the ongoing climate, energy, and biodiversity crisis. So I don't know. It looked to me like they were actually doing stuff and not just sitting around praying. Although that was a part of what they're doing. It just made me think that like you could be doing more. I don't know.
I mean, don't you remember? I think it was like in 2021 that they had a national prayer thing to end atheism. Remember that?
Yep, I sure do.
Yeah, it didn't seem to work very well, I guess.
It worked on me for a few minutes. There was a few minutes where I was like, "Oh shit!" Suddenly Jonah did live inside of a fish for 3 days.
Then you're like, maybe not. I don't know why the NDI stopped working. I for some reason I goofed somewhere, so I have to kind of manually change things around here. But we're back. How do I get the NDI back working? It's weird. My NDI just stopped.
I don't even know what that stands for. Non-disclosure indigestion.
No, NDI audio video. It's basically a direct source to the for webcam. That's all.
You're a direct source to the webcam.
I am, but I'm gonna get the link. I'm gonna figure it out so people can join us here. And so I'm working on this.
Sure thing. The National Center for Science Education, which I love. I don't know. I enjoy reading their articles. They always keep me up to date on like the latest legislation going through. Eugenie Scott sometimes contributes, and I love Eugenie Scott.
Oh, I do too. Yeah, she's amazing. She was the head of the National Science and Educational thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of my favorite videos ever of all time is a debate between Kenneth Miller, Jeannie Scott, a couple other guys, and then the other side was Berlinski. Is it David Berlinski?
Oh, I remember that name.
He's like a mathematician.
Yeah.
He debated Christopher Hitchens. It was a really good debate. He's really smart, but he's also like really dumb too. It's weird. How can you be like he feigns ignorance, I think, in order to prove his point? Like it's frustrating to see because it's like he pretends that he doesn't know why an organism would have adaptive features. Like, what do you mean? Like, you go to a cold climate, you're going to adapt fur, or paler skin to, he doesn't understand it. And it's weird because he argues he's a mathematician. So he argues using like bogus reverse probabilities, which is something I see a lot on Twitter. People saying, it's the fine tuning argument, basically. Mm-hmm. As the design's just in such a way, it's the puddle analogy. It's it's the same tripe over and over.
Yeah, I think a lot of people tend to do that. They'll be like they feign ignorance. Again, I think Nathaniel Jeanson has done that before as well. Unfortunately, that because of the things that he has put out, that other people have gone, hey, look, anybody that knows about these subjects should know better than this, right? And if you're a mathematician and you're a PhD in math or something like that, you're going to know some certain things, right? And yeah, I've seen that, because again, they have to like maintain this position in their head. So in order to do that, they really do, I think, have to like feign ignorance in other areas.
Yeah. William F. Buckley was also in that debate, and it's just funny to hear him argue in defense of intelligent design, because he didn't really make arguments for intelligent design. He was kind of all fluff and sophistry and braggadocious. His, I think, reputation kind of preceded him in that debate. But it's a really good debate. It's like 10 parts on YouTube, and Kenneth Miller just wiped the floor with all of them. He had all these placards ready to go. He is like, he's my fucking hero. He's a Roman Catholic, and that's fine. But his knowledge of intelligent design and why it's bullshit, human chromosome 2. He can tell you the base pair, 14,825,205, and it's like, oh, you're so awesome.
No, by the way, I needed to do an episode one of these days on human chromosome number 2 revisited. That was a really big topic back in the day, and I think that it's one of the rare things that I think it was who, I don't remember who it was, but somebody was arguing that they didn't think it was great evidence, but it's just like, I think human chromosome 2 is literally,
it's a dead ringer,
a fingerprint of the fact that creationism is wrong. It's a fingerprint that we've had evolutionary history with all members of Homoidia, and that there is the fact that we have 46 chromosomes, other members have 48 of the great apes. There has to be a reason for that, biologically speaking, that needs to be accounted for, right? And even if we can't account for it, there still has to be a reason for it. We understood back in the 80s that probably what it was, but then they actually found out what it was, and it was like, yeah, there you go, boom, done. And that, I think, was a huge death blow to young Earth creationism as far as that. And I know Dr. Tompkins has tried to work around that. He's a botanist, actually, is his expertise, but he has made some critical mistakes, I think. And again, he tries to say, okay, well, this is like an active gene called the DDX11L2 gene. He says this has transcriptions, but as far as I can find, no database puts it as anything but a pseudogene, and it's spurious transitions. But I would love to get back into that topic one of these days about why creationists think that against human chromosome 2 fusion, which it clearly is. I mean, it's just, I don't see how anybody could you don't even have to be a biological expert to understand it's a freaking Robisonian translocation.
I mean, it's got the centromeres and the telomeres exactly where you would expect them to be in the case of a fusion. Yeah, and then people will say, well, how do you know it's not deleterious? Like, we've seen that same Robertsonian type of fusion in mice and antelopes and buffalo. Like, what's the problem?
And it doesn't have to be deleterious. With the moonshag deer and other organisms, it's never well, I should say it's never deleterious, but in those cases, it's not. The organism is just fine as long as the information is there. It's just in a different location.
One of the big things for me is that, when chromosomes duplicate, duplication generally, it doesn't have to be deleterious or negative or harmful. It can set the stage for further point mutations, and that's really like, how is it not obvious that that's more likely than spontaneous poof generation? Which
I don't know. Again, so what? There's point mutations all the time. There's SNPs all the time.
Right. I think there's like 75 to 150 mutations per generation.
And that's quite normal. And again, deleterious to the organism. When it comes to deleterious or beneficial, it's with respect to the environment, anyways, right? And so you can't really know whether something's going to be deleterious if it's neutral to the environment, right? This is considered to be neutral. But as you said, there's two centromeres. One's active, one's inactive, right? The cryptic centromere. And so this is what we would expect in a fusion site. And so, anyways, we did have somebody join us. I couldn't figure out how to give out the link. I had to call her direct. I apologize. But Cindi has joined us. Hi, Cindi. How are you?
Hello, Miss Cindi.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
It's good to hear your voice again.
Thank you. I feel like we are so many worlds apart. I have no clue where to be.
That's wonderful.
Well, why is that? I got to know why is that?
I'm speechless. I have no idea how to approach any of the arguments I've heard so far.
I'm a very tender guy, so
he's not. I already warned him. You know, be nice. He's a nice guy. He really is. Yeah. So I mean, well, you know what? It's funny you say that, Cindi, because I could get that. I can understand why these subjects are so inaccessible to the average person. Luckily, you know, he's had, you know, biology, and he's had some subjects. I took biology a little bit. And so
I failed chemistry 3 times.
Well, chemistry sucks. Chemistry's hard.
Yeah.
But I took stoichiometric and I took inorganic chemistry. I couldn't even bother. Organic chemistry would have killed me. But, you know, you do have to, like, have a little bit of foundation to really get into the topics. And that's, I think, is why it makes it so much more inaccessible to the average person. That's why I think channels like this and Apologia and Tony Reed and other people that put these informations out there, that makes it much more accessible to the average person that may not have the background, even the preliminary background, to understand something like why chromosome number 2 is a very good argument against creationism. As a matter of fact, I think it's almost a foolproof argument. I really can't see a creationist working around it. I've read Tompkins' work. I think he knows he's wrong. I really do.
I actually have not done any research on that particular subject.
It's prevalent. It's a bit, well, in a nutshell. I mean, do you want to explain it real quick in a nutshell why it's so important that we were able to explain the difference in chromosomal for the diploid number?
Well, I have to say that even if you could prove that chromosomes fused together and it fails in my mind. I mean, I guess you're going to call me stupid, but
no, you know, I never do that.
I would never.
It fails to prove that an ape and a human are related. I'm not compelled.
I'll let Porter take this one.
I mean, off the top of my head, I know it's a really dense and complicated subject. That's kind of my way of saying, like, off the top of my head, I don't know how to best explain it. I mean, it's kind of a bookmark. It's kind of it's like with endogenous retroviruses, it's a stamp that had to have gotten there somewhere, somehow. Just to say that it appeared spontaneously, it doesn't really, I guess, with the idea that organisms would spawn instantaneously as in different kinds, kind of fails to explain the patterns of similarities and differences that we see. So it's not just explaining similarities, it's also like explaining those differences and the parsimony between those two things. You know, we would expect to see this if chromosomes fused. We see there's chimps have 48 chromosomes, we have 46. Why are there 2 missing ones, or why are there a difference? We see, you know, the presence of vestigial centromeres, something that would have happened if they had fused. In chromosome 2, there are remnants of a second centromere. It's, you know,
it's good
parsimony.
Yeah, I
Okay,
mean,
so
go ahead.
in one chromosome or 2, 46 and 48, you're going to have hair all over the body. You're going to have language. You're going to have upright walking. You're going to have the spine attached vertically instead of at an angle for knuckle walking. You're going to have the thumb toe that doesn't grasp around a tree limb. You're going to have all that. All those differences are just in that.
Well, those are phenotypical characteristics, like the plantigrade, plantigrade motion and opposable thumb and all that stuff. That's all kind of phenotypical, right?
Yeah, and I think that a lot of morphological differences can occur with very few genetic differences.
Yeah.
For lack of better words, it doesn't take a lot to express something very differently phenotypically. you know.
Yeah, if you look at a great ape hand, if you look at a silverback's hand, and you just change the kind of like the melatonin in it, and a human hand, they're almost identical. They're very, very indistinguishable from each other. But what we're talking about when it comes to chromosomes, if we are members of Homoidia, which is the great apes, right, Cindi? If we're a member of that group, right, as far as ape, we're in the ape family, right? Then we'd have to be able to explain why is it that we are, as a species, only have 46 as a diploid number, but all other members of the great ape family have 48. This needs to be accounted for in biology, right? There has to be an explanation.
Wait! You just spoke on my side.
Ow. Oh my God, I'm a creationist now. Thank you, Cindi.
You are.
Oh, great.
We did it.
Yay! Sorry, guys, we're done.
They all have
See you in heaven, brother.
48. Doesn't that say we're uniquely different?
Well, we're every species is uniquely different. Every species in it is uniquely different because it's reproductively isolated from every other species. That's what makes it a species. Well, there's like 28 different things that can be comprised of a species. But yeah, we're different from like jellyfish, right? We're completely different species. So we have unique characteristics that jellyfish don't have, and vice versa. But all members of the great apes have very similar characteristics, right? I mean, they're like, for example, even animals are chemo heterotropic. They are, multicellular, and then you start narrowing down these types of properties that would be constitutive of what an ape would be, right? So we are mammalian, so we have mammary glands. We are have fur. We just call it hair, but hair and fur are identical, chemically speaking, right? So keratin.
Keratin.
Yeah, so keratin.
Same as a rhino's horn.
Same thing.
So much fingernails, horse hooves.
But what we're saying is, so in biology, we need to be able to explain why is it we are members of the ape family, phylogenetically speaking, holistically speaking. That why is it we have a chromosomal difference? Well, back in the 80s, they had
because we're not members.
Well, no. Actually, we are. This was demonstrated. It is conclusive now. It's not even a matter of just a hunch, which would have been years ago, anyways, centuries ago. But in the 80s, they had recognized that there was some banding issues on the chromosome number 2, which would basically they had hypothesized were a fusion of pan-troglodyte 12 and 13 chromosome, and the banding kind of explained that, but we didn't have the technology back then to really, I hate to say the word prove it because science doesn't prove, but confirm it. And so
yeah,
but eventually we did have the technology. They have confirmed that there is a repeated motif, right, in a region that shows that it was these two chromosomes, they had fused together, and because of that, the offspring now, from that fusion became us, so to speak, right?
Fusing two things is going to make our cranial capacity like double that of a chimp.
Well, no, that's
well,
all.
The fusion just sets the stage for further point mutations down the line.
Right. I mean, I personally think, again, I had pushback on this, but it seems to me when we developed fire and we were able to cook things, and we would have a better ability to metabolize foods better, the cranial capacity kind of increased. I mean, from what I understand, we have about 5 watts it takes for the mind or the brain, and millions of years ago that probably was a lot less. So I think that it was a lot of environmental things that increased brain capacity. But no, the chromosome fusion site is basically, again, just showing that we have lineage to them. We are related to pan-troglodytes, which are chimpanzees, and in return, we're related to orangutans, and bonobos, and all the great apes. So
you're saying, well, I have 2 different avenues I want to take on this. I think I'll take the one I'm more familiar with, but if you go back, you see more advanced humans, not less advanced. You see some cave people, but if you go live in a cave, that doesn't make you a Neanderthal. That means you're running from something or whatever. But the advanced technology that they find in some of the other older cultures, you're familiar with some of that.
Well, I mean, what do you mean? They have primitive tools, but I wouldn't call them like technology.
No. Like
I have
drills, like Tiahuanaco and Machu Picchu where we have no idea how they made those things.
Actually, I think we do, because they have actually shown how they're made. They're actually shown how they can actually cut the rock using, what they do is they'll take they'll basically hammer in something like a steel, whatever it was from the material, but they would hammer it straight down in a line, and it would cut the rock absolutely flat. I mean, almost like mirror flat.
But I mean, that's still more advanced. It's still advanced. It's not Stone Age. It's
Can I cut in for just a moment?
A chimp with a stick in it.
It's weird for me to hear somebody say that people who came before us were more advanced, because so you're saying that on a computer powered by electricity, connected to a global social media network powered by satellites orbiting the Earth. If you go back, I mean, what is more advanced about pyramids and
to be able to hammer something and get a flat face, which we've seen them do.
Yeah,
and we have also seen.
And I'm not
using
saying
water.
that to be rude or mean. I'm curious, like, why you would think that.
Well, like, we didn't think they had electricity, and it looks like they did have the ability to make a perfect drill hole. And some of the things that you see if you go on Google Maps and just kind of pan around the Earth, there's stuff that looks like they did have grids, power grids.
I'd be very interested to.
Where would these electricity come from? I mean, I do agree they may have something like what's called the Baghdad battery, if you remember that, but it was used for more electric lighting. But they didn't. I don't think they ever understood how, in any way, how it worked. But they recognized certain metals, if you brought them in contact with each other in certain solutions, would produce this,
Yeah, I've heard about that battery,
they wouldn't understand what electricity was. They didn't have any concept of that.
Well, you assume that because you think that we were Neanderthal, but
Well, no, we were never Neanderthals. Neanderthals are a completely different species. We didn't evolve from Neanderthals. They're completely different.
Although I do apparently have 2% DNA.
That's quite high, actually. Yeah.
What I meant was that we were dumber, and there's some, maybe you'll think I'm crazy, but it does look like the pyramids might have been like a global Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I've seen no evidence of that. I think it's a lot of those conspiratorial theories.
I think it's more of an astronomical feature because it lines up perfectly with
there's actual satellite footage of destroyed pyramids all over the planet, and kind of like the Nazca lines are like straight, like they were done with a laser, but some of the other ones are not shapes like the Nazca lines, the monkey and all that. Some of them just look like city patterns.
Well, have you ever seen them make crop circles like in real time? They look, it's amazing what people can do. And it's not a matter of me, I think dumber, right? I think dumber is not the right word to use. They were very intelligent for what they knew at the time. But you take somebody from 2,000 years ago, they're not going to be able to build a computer. They're not going to be able to understand Wi-Fi. They're not going to be able to.
You could give them the pieces of a phone and they wouldn't know how to put it together to make it operate.
No clue.
Well, I think their cranial capacity was, in fact, wasn't Neanderthal man? Didn't he have a larger cranial capacity than we did?
I don't know if the size of the mind, the brain has, and the cranial capacity.
I think so, but I mean, the different parts of the brain, contribute differently to the locomotion and everything else. I think one of the reasons that we would suspect, I think, and expect to see lots of pyramids all over the world is because that's a very primitive build. Its structural integrity is the most of a triangle, of a pyramid is there are going to be a lot of them. They're old, so I don't know.
It's a primitive shape. Yeah, it's a primitive shape. Yeah. I mean, it's most common. It's
most structurally sound.
And by the way, the ancient Greeks, they knew about math. They knew about geometry. They knew about mathematics and basic algebra. They would understand that a pyramid would be the most stable shape. It wouldn't take much research to do for a scientist at the time to go, oh, look, I want to have ability of structure that's not going to fall down.
I think you
Okay.
could literally practice that
You
with a
guys
pile
heard
of
of
rocks.
that?
Yeah.
No way, you're not a pile of rocks, guys.
No,
No,
I'm
they
just
do.
saying.
They
No,
do.
no,
They actually
I've
do.
not tried.
Have you seen rock
You could
stacking?
literally
Have you seen rock
stack
stacking?
rocks
Yeah.
to see that a pyramid can shapes. Like if you just drop rocks, I think they're
Cindy,
initially
go
gonna
look up rock balancing. It's
form a
beautiful.
pyramid.
Rock balancing is
You
actually.
guys heard of the antique Ethereum
Yes,
device?
of course.
That
Yeah.
was an ancient computer.
Not really, but I mean, again, the civilizations had mechanical abilities. I mean, they knew about gears, they knew about basic mechanics, they knew about pulley, lever. They understood these concepts. They weren't as like completely ignorant as some people tend to think. That doesn't mean that they knew how to build an actual computer. An abacus is a type of computer system. It calculates if you know how to use the beads properly. It doesn't mean that it's based upon electronics like that. They understood mechanical stuff. I mean, Archimedes' lever had been known for, I mean, how long for the Greeks? They use it for water pumping.
Well, so then we're saying the
Archimedes'
same
screw.
thing, that ancient man was advanced. And the other thing I wanted to dump on this dumpster fire is the
I told you there was going to be a dumpster fire. I told you we're not going to have a dumpster fire today.
is
Not with
the
you.
fact that a lot of these ancient pyramid temple thingamajigs are aligned with the stars, and they show very advanced knowledge of the stars and the equinoxes and stuff, which
Well, I
you
think
don't
they
get
do that.
from a naked eye, and
No,
you don't get
I think they
from
could.
evolving from a monkey.
I think when you consider that there was an incredible, there was no light pollution back then, zero light pollution. The stars, I'm sure, I would assume that they were
Very,
much
clear.
brighter, very clear, and that's why they were so significant to navigation, pre-industrial era. That's why they're
and for crops, the cycle of things like that nature. A lot of it came from agriculture, right? But I mean, navigation, agriculture is the biggest thing for the stars. They didn't know what they were, though. The men back then, even in Greek time, did not have any clue that there were these big balls of fusion reactors. You know, the hydrogen converting to helium.
No,
they didn't know that, right?
If you and me look up at the sky tonight, we're going to see a bunch of dots. There is no way in hell we would be able to navigate by that. There is no
we don't
way
have the
we would be able to
we don't have the
tell.
knowledge. I mean, there are navigators
there's-
today that could.
But over a period of
There's
time,
no way that you and I would be able to look up there and say, okay, that means it's 2022 because that star is in that position. And in 2018, it was in this position. And in 2030, it's going to be in that position.
well,
That
they
is
could tell. They
highly
could tell.
advanced.
Well, they could tell some movements, right? Matter of fact, planets were called wandering stars, right? But there's certain things like the North Pole star, right? It is always in the same position. Now, it has obviously precession, but that's over like 33,000 something years or whatever it is. But for over a period of years, hundreds of years, it's not going to really move. It's always going to be the same location. Matter of fact, I could walk outside right now if it was night, and I could point to the North Pole. It's always going to be right there. And certain stars are certain polar for my area. I mean, so they're always going to be above the horizon, like the double cluster. They would know these things, right? They would see these things over a period of time. And so by navigation, they would say, okay, let me find the North Star. Well, it's always in the same position. It doesn't go anywhere. That's always north. And once you have a reference from north, you've clearly got south, east, and west, right?
But how would you know that just by you and me or some dumber thing than you and me looking up into the sky?
Because every time I go out at night, it's always in the same position. And then I could watch the stars rotate around there. I can see the double cluster. You can see it with the naked eye on a clear
If I
night.
was an animal, I wouldn't even be looking up much less trying to plot where they are all the time.
Why would it matter for animals or not? And I mean, again, I think the conflation is there's what's called a brute animal, and there's animal in the sense of biology, right? We're not brute animals, right? When we say brute animal, that humans are taken out of that category, right? So when we talk about animals as far as biology, it just means what category do we fall in? We fall in that category of heterotrophic. We fall in that category of multicellular. We're not plants, right? We're not bacteria. So we're in the kingdom of Animalia.
Feed on organic
So what you're
matter,
saying
has
is
specialized sense organs.
What you're saying is we've never been a brute animal. We've always been a different kind of animal.
Well, we're again,
under the umbrella of animal. We've
Yeah.
always been animal.
yeah, we've never been again, going back to whatever the species are like 4 billion years ago, obviously they were much primitive, more species, but we have evolved from other species, but those other species at some point diverged into animalia, and then we evolved from them.
So you're saying we did evolve from a brute animal. And my point was that if I look back, I'm not going to see that we came from a brute animal. I'm going to see that we came from a more advanced animal.
Well, what do you mean by more advanced animal? Because you're talking about technology. We're talking about when we say brute animal, for example, like a cow would be a brute animal. A horse would be a brute animal. These are not animals that have self-awareness that we would have as far as sentience and sapience. So that would take kind of humans out on that. You would agree that humans are much more technologically capable than other animals, right?
Well, that's my point, honey, that we came that way from the get-go, that we didn't come from an ape.
But categorically wise, we are apes. And that's what I'm saying. It's a categorical thing because we meet all the criteria for what an ape is by properties.
Well, we have some similar shape.
It's exact. All the conditions for an ape that apply to a chimpanzee apply to us. Every single one of them. That's what it means to be in the category of ape. And again, we're so vastly different than an ape. I just can't see it scientifically or. I'm telling you, if you shave a silverback and you change a little bit of skin color, they look pretty human. But again, these are different species. That's all. It's just a different species of ape.
Yeah, I think if you focus more on what we do, what humans are capable of, that is significantly different from our morphology, what we are, what composes us.
Yeah,
exactly. And it's fundamentally light years away from a silverback.
Is it?
What we can do is, but not what we are.
Anatomically speaking, do we not have the exact same organs for the most part? I mean, what
Chandler was just saying is not just morphology, but what we do.
Right. No, we are more technologically advanced, but as far as anatomically speaking, how do we differ much from an ape, any other ape, anatomically speaking?
Well, that's what I was saying. We do have a similar shape.
That's morphology, right? I'm talking about anatomy.
Oh.
Two lungs, heart, spleen, gallbladder, brain, spine, pelvic bone.
That's true.
It's almost, we are almost indistinguishable from most of the great apes. I mean, it's just, you're talking about minimal morphological, minimal anatomical differences. But in biology, we can actually show the predecessors. We can show the relationship of just Denisovians and Homo nihilus and Neanderthals. We can show that these are all on one big phylogenetic tree. This went this way, that went that way, and here we are over here. We're just a branch off that, right? And everything points to that. Proteomics points to that. Phylogenetics points to that. Cladistics points to that. Chromosomal makeup points to that. That's what we were talking about with the whole chromosome number 2. Everything points to this. And I think that if a young Earth creationist is just put aside the incredulity, the shock factor, because I get that, I really do. It is a shock factor when you have the presupposition that we must become of God. If we must become of God, then there's some kind of special creation, generally speaking, right?
Well, I do agree about Chandler's comments about presuppositionalism, I think is what he called it, where you're right. I do believe the Bible first, and you're not going to be able to talk me out of it. However,
which I'm going to try to do, by the way, you know that.
However, I don't feel scientifically compelled against it. I feel the more research I do, the more I feel it's validated, not undermined. Well, and I don't think that the argument that you made for our similarities genetically or any other way with the anatomically, morphologically to a silverback or any other kind of a ape can overcome the huge hurdle of what we do.
I think Kenneth Miller said it best. I mean, the other side of the room is really far away. It shouldn't surprise anyone that we get there one step at a time. I think when you expect these huge changes in a single generation. I think when you expect individuals to evolve rather than populations, I don't know. I mean, I think you're going to see what you want to see, for lack of better explanation. I think if you start with the Bible, that's going to kind of create a bias that.
By the way, I didn't start with the Bible until I was about 22. And I was a geography major and fully schooled in evolution. I read The Naked Ape as a teenager. And so I didn't start with the Bible. And when I was in a geology class and they were talking about some of this millions of years stuff, I was thinking to myself, that doesn't make sense. And so I, quote, evolved out of evolutionary thinking. And the more research I did, the more I became convinced that the scriptures were clear. And the other point I wanted to bring out about special creation is the Cambrian explosion. The first fossils we see are all unique. They don't, it's,
well,
they're all
the Cambrian. You got to remember, things don't fossilize very well, right? And even in the Cambrian explosion, a lot of those things were very soft tissue. They didn't fossilize very well.
Soft-bodied stuff,
right? Very soft-bodied stuff. So we wouldn't expect things. Matter of fact, I think it's amazing what we have. I think it's amazing for the fossils that we do have, because fossilization is a rare occurrence. It actually is.
And there are Precambrian fossils.
There are Precambrian fossils, yeah.
No, but the point is, in the first layer of strata where you find an explosion of Cambrian life forms, there's no evidence that they came from something else. They just appear.
No, there
they
actually
appear.
is. Nope, we have
abruptly.
Cindi, we have Precambrian fossils. It's just that Precambrian fossils, if I remember correctly, doesn't really have any kind of animalistic attributes to it. And so when plants and animals started to diverge, and so you have the separation, then you started having a lot more of the fossil record to show for it. And again, the strata that it's in, we can show again by other conciliations like radiometric dating, which I know you don't agree with, but it is 500 some odd million years old, give or take. But I want to address Willie Mays fan in the live chat real quick, because he says, no one in the history of mankind has ever seen an animal evolve into something else. And I think that that question or the statement doesn't make any sense. It's like, I don't know what it would mean for an animal to evolve into something else. An animal. An animal. Yeah. An animal is always.
Animal.
Which, by the way, an animal doesn't evolve. Populations evolve, right? An animal can acclimate, but a single animal does not evolve. But I'm going to give him benefit of the doubt for population. But you never stop being an animal. Whatever we evolve, whatever species comes from us, will still always be human. It'll still always be an animal. This is why we are still related to all the other animals, right? Because we have a phylogenetic history with them. No animal population is going to stop being the species that it is. It's going to be a more specialized species, and they might call it something else. It's a hierarchy. This goes back into Meyer's law of phylogeny, right?
But see, you don't understand that what you just said is that the species is going to stay the same species, which is what we're saying.
Well, no. They're going to be a more specialized form of a species, which will be an independent species. Like, for example, Homo sapiens sapiens. So when you have certain species that will just branch off with each other, say due to allopatric speciation, they become what's called reproductively isolated from each other. They cannot mate with each other. They are independent species, and they'll branch off and they'll do their own speciations. And so eventually, towards the millions of years, you have these species that are very morphologically, physiologically, genetically distant from each other.
But they're still essentially Homo, for example.
Yeah, I mean, so so there's a common ancestry between us and all pan troglodytes. It's called pan prior. It has not been discovered yet. This is true, but we have discovered a ancestry to all members of Homoidea. It's called Australopithecus pyrlonicus. It was about 11 million years ago that it lived. They discovered it in Spain after predicting its existence. That species, whatever Australopithecus pyrlonicus features and genetics it had, that was the precursor for all other members of Homoidea. It's the last common ancestor, is what it's called.
So do you guys believe that we all came from a single-celled thing that became a double-celled, or it became more and more complicated?
Well, I think single life came first, and then multicellularity came out of that. Sure.
Sure. Eukaryotes came from single-celled organisms.
Protistas.
So, for example, like a single-celled, maybe virus or something, morphed into...
Well, not a virus. No, virus is completely different.
Virus is is that even alive?
Yeah, there's a certain...
Okay.
The answer to that question, by the way, from what I understand, if you ask a virologist, viruses are alive. If you ask a bacteriologist, they're not alive. So it's like whatever.
Well, I'm not specialized enough to know anything about
Neither
that.
are
All I
we.
was trying to say
Neither are
was,
we.
if we evolved from some kind of a simple or celled organism, and then grew into like maybe a sea cucumber, and that grew into like maybe something more complicated that had a vertebrae, and that's what you believe?
That's
Well, it would
science-
branch like a tree,
Yeah.
not like a ladder.
Yeah, it's not much difference, and I hate to compare embryology to this because this is not a true comparison. So this is whole what we call heuristic. Okay, meaning that it's not exactly the case. It's just a learning thing. So for heuristically speaking, though, I mean, you start off with a zygote, right? You start off with the husband spermazona and the ovum. They come together. You get a zygote. That's so you have a single cell that's comprised of two gametes. And now from that single cell, you then get a blastocyst. Then you get a zygote. Then you get a fetus. Then you get an embryo. Then a fetus. And then you get a baby. And then you get a kid. Then an adult. Yeah, you get a Republican. And again, I might have butchered the embryology, but
Sorry.
but we all start off as a single cell, right? So I mean, yes, but as far as like we've seen single cells in the laboratory actually become multicellular. Yeast is one example of multicellularity, and so the reason I think that becomes prevalent in history is one. Multicellularity seems to have evolutionary attributes that are beneficial to the population. And that's why...
But wait a minute. So you're describing how we go from a single cell in the womb. However, that's still the same organism reproducing itself. A human
Right. And that's why I said it's heuristic. But
if a single cell, it's its own organism, or some kind of a simple organism reproduces, it's still going to reproduce itself. It's not going to change into a different kind of an organism.
Well, but again, it just means it's reproductively isolated from this prior history and to another ancestral population. We've seen this with the California ensatina salamander. The California ensatina salamander has multiple populations in California because of different geographic regions. It has been many populations of what's called allopatric speciation. The populations in the ring, called a ring speciation, they're isolated from each other for the most part, except the ones that are closest to geographically speaking. This one could be a hybrid of this one, but this one cannot mate to this one. But they're all variations of the ensatina salamander. But these two populations, so to speak, are so reproductively isolated to each other, we can call this one a new species because it's not like the other species. It cannot mate with the other species.
Well, yeah, and that happens with all kinds of different creatures. Right. But it's still a salamander. It's not going to turn into...
Right, and whatever evolves from us is still a human, right?
Yeah, anything that evolves from human is going to be eukaryotic, mammalian, vertebrate, primate,
chordata. It's all going to have the same characteristics.
Tetrapod.
Yeah.
But if the salamander is always going to remain a salamander and a human's always going to remain a human, that means we started out that way.
No. That's going forward. See, you look. The future is not the same as the past, right? Once you have a hierarchy created, once you've gotten on that branch, then it starts branching off. Where that branch goes to is always going to have the past. But our past, our past is completely different. I mean, if something evolves from us and they're still going to be humans, but they're going to be a completely different species, they're going to call them Homo sapiens intelligentis or something, right? Whatever we call them. And they have bigger eyes, they have bigger mouths, they have bigger heads, super strong, fur all over their, more covered on their body, more dense. I mean, whatever it is, they're going to look different, very morphologically different from us, so to speak, right? And they would not be able to mate with a modern human, right? They're no longer reproductively viable with us. That's going to be a different species. but they're still human, right? They're still human. They still have everything that they've had, but now they have this new thing that we're going to call them. We can create a whole new name for them. We're going to call them, I don't know, human nuevo or something, right? Or whatever. It's just a name. They're just semantic labels, right?
Sapien.
Well,
they're just labels.
I feel that you're stating an argument for creation.
Well, it's funny. Creationism uses that very thing in baryomonology. They rely on this. Creationism relies on evolution to exist. Even the most diehardest creationists that are in the scientific field recognize that in order to get biodiversification for 8 million extant species, there has to be some form of evolution, right? There has to be. One quick Willie Mae fan for $20. Super chat. Thank you, Willie Mae's fan. He says, can we at least agree pineapples belong on pizza? Oh, dude, you're going to make me...
I love pineapple and ham on pizza.
Okay. First of all, it doesn't belong on it. I will eat... No,
it doesn't belong on it. Yeah. It just happens to taste fucking fantastic when you do it.
It's okay. I will eat it. I will eat pineapple pizza, and I probably will enjoy it if the pineapple's fresh. Not canned. Fresh.
Yeah,
it's just not the thing that I prefer over pepperoni and sausage and things
yeah,
like that.
Yeah. So. I remember one time quickly, my parents were having a big event and they ordered a bunch of pizza, and my mom knew that I liked ham and pineapple pizza. So she ordered an entire one just for me. Nobody else in my family liked it. So I was stuck eating an entire ham and pineapple pizza because nobody else wanted it. It's like, thanks.
Those are called first world problems, dude.
Yeah.
Artichokes on pizza are really good. You'd have points out, and I happen to like anchovy on pizza. Call me crazy. I happen to like anchovy. I don't know why. Anchovy.
No judgment.
Now I tell you, I like Little Caesar's pizza, but for some reason though, my head cannot grasp eating a pizza that has 3,200 calories and 3,000 milligrams of salt. It's just,
my god,
it's ungodly.
Really?
Yeah. Little Caesar. Yeah. So one of their pizzas, I don't remember which one it was, has 6,800 milligrams of salt. That's like 2 days plus worth of salt intake, and it's like 6,000 fucking calories.
I'll dry you out.
And my diet has gone to crap as it is. I've been eating like I bought a pie the other day. It was a coconut cream pie. It was half price. I'm like, oh, you know me, I'm frugal, right? So it was my frugalness. I'm like, oh god, I gotta have this for half price, and it was delicious. Yikes. But it had to be like 5,000 freaking calories. So yeah, my diet has not been great lately.
I've been doing screaming Sicilian pizza. That's the way to go in Atlanta.
I like Sicilian pizza. Yes.
Just lots of pepper. It's got pepperoni on the bottom of the pizza. It's like
delicious.
Pieces fall off into your burner while you're cooking it.
Dude, check out Little Caesar tonight since Willie Mae's has treated. Should I buy pizza tonight? I don't know. I really do like Little Caesar's pizza. It's super good. But man, the calories and salt super high.
Stand up, Steve. Let's see the let's measure the belly.
When I get back in shape, I have pictures of me dieting, like before, middle, and after. Some of them actually got released. They're like, oh, look at Steve in the mirror. I'm like, yeah, but these are my diet pictures. You know, it's not creepy stuff. But no, I put a little bit of my belly back on. Not much, but about 4 to 5 pounds. But that to me is a lot. I will get back. I blame Jim Jules. She was my nutritionist, and you know, we haven't really done anything nutritional wise. But anyways. Sorry, we're off topic, but I'll get back to my diet. I've already lost my green screen. My light's gone to crap.
Man.
He says, I mentioned pineapple pizza because I know Steve doesn't particularly like it. It's not that I don't like it, dude. It's just not my favorite, right? If somebody said, hey, do you want some pineapple pizza or do you want a meat lovers? Hey, I'm going to go with the meat lovers. Yeah. Or Sicilian type. You know, I love feta and spinach is actually one of my favorite.
That's good. Yeah.
Oh, it's so
I remember there's an episode of American Dad where they got locked in a cave, or maybe it was Futurama. Yeah, it was Futurama. They get locked in a cave, and there's like a bunch of pizzas in the corner. Like, oh, we're saved. And they open it up. It's just pineapple. They're like, they throw it out.
my mom says you had the same broken headphones for 9 years. You're not frugal. You're cheap. No. Back then I couldn't afford it. I seriously, I not too long ago. I mean, people know that I sold my house, which was a mile that way, literally. Around the corner, mile that way. I just measured it yesterday. I was like, how far actually it is away? Is it a half mile, a mile? It is exactly 0.9 miles from where I'm at. So 1 mile. And I sold my house. I lived off my house revenue, income, right? Equity, right? I lived off that for years. And it's so funny, Cindi, because people to this day were like, Steve said he always paid taxes, but here's a video of him saying he didn't pay taxes for 2 years. Yeah, because I had no income. I literally had no income. I lived off my savings. I told people this. I made tens of thousands of dollars. I had $30,000 in equity on my house, right? So I made some money off of it, and I was able to live off of it for a while. So you don't pay taxes if you have no income. It's like, oh, look at Steve live. Like, God, you people are stupid. God, you people are stupid.
I remember that.
Yeah, it's so stupid. Doop. Yeah, you don't pay taxes when you have no income, people. But every year that I've earned taxes, earned income, I paid my taxes.
You get more shade than
my bank account did get low. My bank account got low there for a while. I got down to like $400 at one time, and so I was really in dire straits because I've been living off my savings. But
hey, Steve.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Sal is texting me and telling me that he can't get in. Do you want me to text you his phone number and you Skype him? I
think I have him on Skype. Let me see. Actually, you know what? I give you a link. Give me 1 second. Can I text you the link?
Me or him? You got to text it to him.
It would be easier if I give. It'd be easier if I give it to you and you can text him the link.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, because I was able to create a link now that I called. But I guess you have to be the originator of the call in order to generate a link. I don't know. So we got Sal in here. Sal is a big smart guy.
I do lots of Discord, but not Skype, so I apologize for my.
By the way, I did look it up. The Archimedes screw was first described in 234 BC. So I mean, they did have understanding of mechanics way back when in the BC. So even the Analytica device, that it's not that bizarre.
Antikythera?
Antikythera, whatever device.
Antikythera.
Well, that's supporting our position, and I think Sal's going to talk about genetic stuff too, because genetically we're degrading, not upgrading. Also.
Yeah, that's.
But like, compare this like Antikythera device with like a microchip that you can like plant in a dog and like you can track it.
Yeah,
like, to me that's so much more profound that like.
Compare it to an ape, hon.
Well, again, we're talking millions of years difference. We're not talking like 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 years. We're talking millions of years. I mean, we branched from other, like the last common ancestor for chimpanzees, a pan troglodyte, I think is like 3 to 5 million years ago, give or take.
Can I please address the heat problem?
Oh yeah, that actually I knew about.
Heat problem?
Yeah, I love the heat problem. That's one of my favorite. Please.
Yeah, Erica, she was like brutal. Anyway,
Erica's amazing.
Well, okay, so did you know there are other ways to get uranium to strontium than radiometric decay?
What do you like? You mean like bombardment?
Like lightning strike?
I've never seen lightning cause any kind of nuclear reactions.
I know. I just did a whole bunch of research on it. There's several scientific papers that talk about it, and there's other. I think Sal, if he gets on, he can talk about something called transmutation, which is where, like, what looks like radiometric decay, like C14 going into what does it go into? Nitrogen? I forget. And then uranium going into.
I think I know what he's referring to. I think he's talking about, for example, we know that lightning can cause changes in nitrogen and ozone because of oxygen. We know that. That's not transmutation, though.
No. It can actually knock a proton out of the atom and make it into a different atom. Transmutation. It's mutating into a different atom.
Well, I mean, I guess if the energy level's that high, but I don't know how. I don't know the physics of that. I would have no idea how lightning would be able to do that. But if you're dealing with very high energy levels, I mean, obviously it can cause X-rays. We know that lightning causes atmospheric things like ELVs that last for, split second, milliseconds. But we've now been able to actually film them and see these jets come out from lightning strikes and these pulses that come out, right? So we know that can produce photonic energy.
Well, you'd have to Google that.
I would say that. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have an issue with that. To me, it would just be a very low energy nuclear reaction. It's not the same thing like a fusion reaction. It's not going to. it's not going to cause like something like the sun to be produced, you know. But I
No,
mean,
but the way that you measure radiometric decay is you measure how much uranium's in the sample and how much lead is in the sample. And if uranium decays into lead over a certain amount of time, and you can measure how much time must have gone by.
sure.
But if there's other ways besides that radiometric decay to get uranium to go into lead,
But how much is it going to contribute? I mean, I'm willing to concede completely that lightning strikes can cause certain things like electromagnetic decay, you know, electroweak. Like, for example, when you have an electron that has a captured by a proton, it'll turn into a neutron and an neutrino, right? So you can have an electron, proton, neutron, and neutrino, and then you have beta decay where you have a proton to decay into a neutron and then to a electron and antineutrino. That I'm perfectly fine with. Those are low energy electroweak interactions.
But it would change. It would change the amount of the parent and daughter, therefore changing the amount of time.
But these are going to be, one, very, very minimal, and two, it's going to be in the upper atmosphere for the most part, right? So, but we're not going to. It's still these carbon sources that we test for carbon dating are very buried deep in the ground. And so when you look at these deposits of, for example, when we see coal that has any kind of non-alluvial and what's called non-endogenous radiometric decay, it's always because of an external source. It's always because that coal has come from mines that have uranium and thorium. It's going to be based upon radiometric decay constants. It's not going to have any effect on the fact that lightning can cause these really weak, electroweak types of decays. Hi, Sal. Been a while, man.
Hello.
How are you? Willie Mays fan for $5 says add anchovies. Little Caesars doesn't have anchovies. It's sad.
It's too fancy for Little Caesars.
Yeah. But what
I also discovered that there is other ways that lead can be introduced into a system, and I also discovered that uranium is actually soluble in salt water. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on that will change the time.
Nothing of any consequence. Again, you're talking about some things that are so minuscule to compare to one. You know, if we take the sampling of radiometrics across the world, it's going to come out the same thing. It's not going to give us, you know, oh, here's this rock that we've dated at, you know, 3 billion years, but lightning strikes makes it 7,000. There's no way that physics would even work.
Well, I think that it might.
How much energy do you think that would be required in lightning strikes to cause that much change in radiometric decay?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be decay.
No, I think, Cindi, you're just jumping to too many conclusions here. There's a lot we don't know, but I have suggested that a mechanism of heavy electron quasi-particles could be changing nuclear structure, and that was something in graduate school. I just pointed out
quasi-particles are posited, though. They are posited, but they've never been confirmed.
No, heavy electron quasi-particles are negative, and they can be induced and lower the Coulomb barrier. There is experimental evidence that we can cause nuclear transmutation at lower energies.
Because the Coulomb barrier has been, well, that's the same. Well, that's also one of the things that, you know, when you're talking about the speed of light changing, the fine constant structure changing, and you lower that Coulomb barrier, so you can have particles interacting with each other with less energy. That's another thing that creationism has tried to come up with. They've tried to hypothesize these types of things, but I've never seen any confirmation of any of them.
No, this is.
I mean, there are quasi-particles that have been confirmed. I shouldn't say that none of them have been confirmed. Like a pentaquark was considered to be a quasi-particle at one time, wasn't it? Pentaquark?
No, quasi-particles are they're fictitious particles that have real effects. I know that sounds funny, but the collective action in the solid state, you can model it. The collective action of all the atoms in the solid state will create something. You can model it as if it's a real particle with mass, size, and position. And this is even if the creationists have failed so far, the secular world has been moving forward in the research. So I did a show on my channel on heavy electron quasi-particles. But the reason Cindi introduced the lightning thing was that I'd thrown it on the table because in graduate school I was looking at means of changing nuclear structure through chemical and electrical means. And it was only in 2017 we got better confirmation that we could have photonuclear processes. Still, those were in the mega electron volts. But if we go down to, there have been later experiments that had lower energies in the kilo electron volts. But then I said, let me see if there's anything we could look at that is at lower energies, even lower, like in the hundreds of electron volts. And I knew from solid state physics, there are all these kinds of quasi particles. You can look it up on Wikipedia.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, I'm familiar with them. It's just excitation level differences, fermion differences, boson level differences. Yeah, I mean, I just still don't understand how even if you can show all these different quasi particles and all these different excitation levels and variations of bosons, that it would change the fundamental fact that when we do radiometric dating, whether it be carbon dating or more specifically when using isochronic dating, because that's a lot more specific and accurate, and it goes for a longer period of time, obviously, that's going to have any effect with those things. I mean, I think it was you probably know this, Sal. Remember barium? I think it's barium-7 in an excitated state tends to decay faster than a non-excitated state. And so, yes, there are things that will change the half-life of radiometrics. These are things that have been well known. However, they're not of any consequence to say, okay, we're going to go from billions of years now to 7,000. That's the problem. These anomalies, these variations that we have that will show, yes, certain things can change the decay rates or create more endogenously. Sure, we recognize that.
It's not changing the decay rate; it's changing the parent-daughter quantities.
Well, that would be an isochronic dating, right? In isochronic dating, we really don't have to care about the ratio of the parent. We don't have to care. We don't have to care about the initial amount. We don't have to care about the ratio of the parent to daughter, right? Now, in carbon dating, yes, we have to know the initial conditions.
No, what I was trying to say is there is a lot of research that we have collectively. Even the secular world is very interested in nuclear transmutation. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of work in Ukraine on this. So even outside of the question of young Earth creationism, the problem of nucleosynthesis is actually pretty deep. And I know in astrophysics, they came up with all these ideas like our processes and stuff. And some people have been dissatisfied. So there are these alternative mechanisms that are now on the table, but also interest in the secular world, because being able to do nuclear waste remediation and
yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's right. There's a bacteria that eats radiation or something like that.
Well,
Chernobyl.
What they want to do is they want to facilitate they want radiometric decay rates to be faster, right? So you don't have the harmful byproducts as much as the lower energy stuff, right? One of the ways that I was looking into working for a company that was doing this was called vitrification, and basically it just encapsulated with glass. But they were trying to change, again, some of the decay rates by pressure temperature. I don't know how much, the physics that would allow you to do that. I'm sure that at certain pressures and temperatures, things may decay at different rates. But the half-life is a pretty fixed constant, right? You would agree with that, Sal, right?
You keep talking about decay rates, and then you've got the heat problem.
Well, the heat,
talking about transmutation without
the heat problem isn't resolved by anything you've said. The heat problem is that if you're going to account for millions and billions of years of radiometric decay in 7,000 years, there has to be an explanation of where that energy is at. Where is that energy?
No, that's my point. Is it isn't produced by decay. It's produced by transmutation.
There's still energy that produced. When you produce a photon or you produce a neutrino, when you produce thermal energy, these even these fission fragments they're resonating. They actually vibrate, and that vibration causes friction. That friction is heat. So all these decays produce energy. All that energy has to be accounted for.
Any transmutation produces the same amount of heat as decay?
Whatever the byproduct is. The heat's going to be a byproduct. I mean, Sal, would you agree that the heat produced in a radiometric decay is going to be, one, by the excitation of the fission fragments, and two, whether it be a photon or neutron, that's going to be an energy that's carried away. That's basically even how they discovered the neutrino And they was like, okay, where's this extra energy going? We're missing energy here. And they posited the neutrino, and then they discovered it, right?
It depends on what reaction. For like the transuranic ones, I think you actually have to put energy in to make it happen. So we can't make a generalization on it. It depends on what elements and what daughter products. But where I was headed was that there's a lot of interest in transmutation. That is the reason I wanted to get into this. Was I actually felt that your side was actually correct to criticize accelerated nuclear decay as a mechanism, because one, it would kill humans.
Yeah, it would be very, very bad for sapient light, any life.
Right. So I felt the creationists actually made a very bad argument there, and that we'd also incinerate the earth. So I looked for alternative mechanisms. And
it would liquefy the crust. They did the calculations. And by the way, this was Rate that did this, Cindi. This was not evolution. This was actually the Rate project that calculated these energy levels out. And
that's why I thought transmutation didn't create that.
No, you still have heat. No, you still have heat. But in fact, when I talked to Humphreys on this, Humphreys had actually told me, I asked about accelerated decay because I want to know if there's evidence for accelerated decay, what would it be? What is this? And his response was, the evidence for accelerated decay, and this was his words, it could be no other way. It has to be, because that's the only thing that explains the heat problem, and therefore it has to be, but that's not evidence for it. That is just, oh, here's this thing we're positing because of a presupposition. But it wasn't evidence for that. It's kind of like a similar analogy from a classical science standpoint would be, hey, look, here's all this gravitational forces we're seeing out there. What's causing this? Mass causes gravitational forces. Therefore, there must be some mass there that we can't see. That's dark, hence dark matter. Why? Because it really could be no other way. There has to be something there that's mass that we can't see. It's dark matter. So that's what Humphreys is kind of posing with the accelerated decay. But if you ask him, well, but if your presupposition is wrong, then accelerated decay doesn't have to exist, right?
I feel like Humphreys feels like it has to be accelerated decay, but he's unaware that there are other ways of altering the parent and daughter ratio.
But that doesn't affect, again, these things still have radiometric decay. It still is decaying. That heat still has to be there somewhere.
Well, it's still decaying, but the daughter product might be coming from another place.
But even in transmutation, there's still heat. There's still energy coming out of it. By the way, we have a super chat, April Van Vine for 20 Canadian. She says, I posit that life is an emergent property as it is an easiest way for the universe to break down carbon. Side note, that's not how physics or biology works. And yeah, by the way, I remember back in the day, they tried to posit that silicon was a viable option for life other than carbon-based. And I don't necessarily think that it actually is. I think that there are some issues with silicon-based life forms, but carbon seems to be ubiquitous, right? And carbon is a very stable substance. It's it has a lot of things that can be added to it with hydrogen or hydrocarbons, and so it seems to be the perfect thing for life, which would be an argument for intelligent design, obviously. But there's something called panpsychism, which actually would explain a lot of things. If panpsychism is true, it would explain life as an emergent property as far as consciousness, at least. That everything has some kind of these what's called what do they call the particles? What's the particle of consciousness called? It's called a oh my God, really, people?
A particle of subconsciousness?
No, a particle of consciousness in panpsychism. It's called a starts with an M.
Panpsychism?
Yeah, it starts with an M. What is it? Oh my goodness. This is where my live chat knows
think
everything.
Of psychophants.
No. Panpsychism is a way to try to explain why we have consciousness from materialistic things. Why do you have a physicalism, and then you have above that the mental properties. But there's a particle that they call, and I can't think of the fundamental particle.
They're trying to make it a material thing instead of a spiritual thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, for the materialist, right, especially, they have to be able to explain how the consciousness supervenes from the physical, and how the physical can do something mental, and vice versa. I mean, it's a mind-body problem. Yeah, I mean, and that's a very difficult problem for materialists. I really do think it is. The mind-body problem is a difficult problem, and same with the hard problem of consciousness. How do you have a mental construct in your head that is causally inert do anything? How does it cause change? Yeah, that's a majorly difficult question in philosophy of religion, right?
I agree.
I don't doubt that. And by the way, Chandler, I don't think you doubt that either, right? That's a difficult question.
It is a very difficult question. It's not particularly as interesting to me. It's kind of like, oh, so you're saying that electricity can produce these images on the screen that I have in my living room and people are dancing around? Yeah, it's awesome. But like the explanation, I don't know. I mean, it's not.
Sure. Once we learn the
It's
explanation,
easy
we'll
to
probably
explain
go,
in TV, but yeah.
we'll probably go, oh well, hell, we should have known that all along, right? I mean, probably we're like, oh, yeah,
Right.
well, of course, but
It seems to be when you combine these different elements, you get this emergent consciousness. I don't know much about it. That's not like radiometric decay. That's not my forte. But I mean, sure, the mystery is there. It's just not as great for me as it is
yeah,
for
I
some
find it
people.
very mysterious.
Well, it's
I like
actually
it.
Yeah, it's mysterious,
Chandler.
certainly.
It's
Mhm.
huge because you started out the program by saying basically the assumption is that science proves that creationists are stupid, and
Well,
it's
no, that's
based
not what we
on
said.
the
That's not
fact.
what we said. That's not what we said.
Wait. It's based on the fact that you think that millions of years is proved by radiometric decay. So that's why that's a crux.
Well, no, we think it's confirmed. But again, all these ad hoc things, all these things that you've brought up, which where I again agree. I mean, lightning, I think obviously because it has energy, can produce electromagnetic decay. That's fine. I know it's what is called low energy nuclear reactions. Okay, sure. But that's not going to
No,
that's not going to
the high
solve the
energy.
problem. What? Sal?
Lightning causes a high energy photonuclear process, but it at least showed that the nuclear structure can be changed other than fission and fusion.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, I have no doubt about that. Yeah, that's not even, I would think, controversial.
Well,
But I looked at the lower
daughter ratios, which changes
looked-
the age you get.
But it's not going to do that in all these different isotopes. There's many types of isochron dating. There's many different ratios. Lightning's not going to. There's no possible way lightning could do that to all these different isotopes the exact same way to say, oh look, all these different these dating methods we have all go back 4.5 billion years. All of them. If lightning never existed, it wouldn't have changed that. It still would be going back 4.5 million years or billion years. It's not going to have that effect on that.
So I think that's why I was interested. There are two processes of interest. There is one that involves high density electrons. It's still a relatively high energy reaction, but it creates an adiabatic process, which means it doesn't create heat. And I covered that on my channel. It's there actually is a it was a pretty detailed article, and it was the original article that inspired it was in Russian. I had to translate it through Google Translate to begin to walk through it. So that's one avenue. The other is the heavy electron quasiparticles causing low energy nuclear reactions and transmutations. So this is not the creationist work. This is
no. I agree. I mean, again, I don't have an issue with any of that stuff. It's rare type stuff. I mean, you don't probably see a lot of these reactions going on frequently, but again, it's nowhere near what you would need to account for the amount of heat generated from all these other elements that have been decaying over billions of years, and yet you're trying to compactify that to 7,000. The numbers wouldn't add up.
The thing is that it's assuming that the parent and daughter products are in that proportion because of the decay, and that's what I'm trying to circumvent.
True.
I actually think that the criticisms of the creationists is correct, that this would be a catastrophic heat problem, not to mention it'd kill humans because of the isotopes in their body. So,
but you agree that the for isochron dating, the daughter and parent, if you do, I haven't looked at these chronometric equations in a very long time, but when I remember looking at them, all you had to know was just the ratio of the parent and daughter, and so you agree that if that ratio has not changed, then you have a lot of heat to account for. What you have to be able to explain is how does that ratio get changed in creationism?
I think there are some interesting experiments that could show this. One thing with the heavy electron quasiparticles, or also this high density of electrons, is that you might get native proportions that will give you the appearance of 4.5 billion years. Now, I'm just throwing this on the table because independent of the young Earth creation thing, this is actually really interesting research. Unfortunately, where some of the research was done is in Kiev, Ukraine, by Vostoysky, who's working on remediating the radiation from the Chernobyl leak. He has a lot of supporters in the United States. They're building a facility near Oak Ridge National Laboratory called Thunderbird. And I just haven't had a chance to write these guys because, one way that I feel that creationists can kind of do their research is stop trying to be advocates and apologists and just kind of enjoy kind of the secular science, and then they'll actually advance their case better. Because they're always trying to win arguments, and I don't think that's very helpful because sometimes you don't have data points and you just end up making stuff up, and that's not helpful.
Well, let me ask you, then we get back to Chandler quick. I don't want to get too bored. Sorry, Chandler.
No, I love it.
Let me ask you, but Sal, I mean, you were smart. I mean, nobody's going to take that away from you. I can testify, your stuff. I've talked to you numerous times. I don't know anybody who thinks that you don't know your stuff. But do you start with the presupposition that that the Earth is young, or did you after learning about science come to that conclusion? And by the way, I plan to have Dr. Hugh Ross back on at some time. We're working it out now. And I would love to have you talk to Hugh. I mean, that would be great. I think have you been on with him before?
No, I had contacted him and invited him. That's an interesting story because I nearly left the Christian faith, and he's one of the people that brought me back. And he's obviously not a young Earth creationist.
Right.
I don't know if he remembers me, but I went up and thanked him personally.
He is a really nice guy. Hugh Ross.
I really like Hugh Ross. He's great.
I will tell you, anybody who dogs on Hugh Ross, I'm not going to like probably because regardless of whether you believe or don't believe or no matter what, that dude is genuinely one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. There's just nothing about him that is not nice. I mean, he's straight up. I mean, and I think again, and I hate to say it, and I didn't know this. I went to an AMP convention years ago, and I had a chance to meet him and talk to him personally, and I met him many times afterwards. But I didn't know he was on the spectrum, and he's one of those people that just doesn't even know how to not like somebody. I mean, people can be insulting him, and he doesn't process it like we would. He's just, yeah, seriously. His autism kind of prevents him from getting those social cues. He's just nice,
I wish I had that.
Yeah, he's biologically hardwired to be nice. Oh, you're a sweetheart. Cindi, you're a sweetheart.
Doesn't Chris Rock have that?
We must have. He got punched. He's like,
yeah.
cool.
I mean, he didn't take those social cues of Will Smith walking up to him.
Yeah, I think
Chris Rock has that same.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I would like Sal to say the name of the title of that broadcast you did that you were referring to, where you were walking through that Russian science paper.
I don't know if I have that one still up, but I have the titles. I may have to redo it. It was by Adamenko and Vostoysky, and oh my goodness, that was just a brutally hard paper to read through. But the one that I did on heavy electron quasi-particles, you could just Google it. It's like heavy electron quasi-particles, young Earth creationism. And so thank you for the free advertisement there, Steve.
No worries.
I did want to answer the question about, I actually was a theistic evolutionist when I became a Christian, and then I was an old Earth creationist for a large part of my life for the reasons that you're stating as far as, radiometric dating and distant starlight. And I began to have a change of heart when I went off to graduate school in applied physics. And I said, okay, I don't think we can prove yet, but it gave a glimmer of hope. And because I think that, my work in biology had convinced me that it's going to be really hard to evolve creatures. So we could look at the fossil record, and if we assume old Earth, it's like you definitely see a progression. But I've kind of reconsidered because I started to study the chemical evidence, the chemical dating, racemization, oxidation, all sorts of chemical things. And I said, well, the clocks don't exactly line up. And so that part is definitely a step of faith, but it's not like it's faith in the absence of facts. I began to just think the fossils started to look young to me, and then the erosion rates. And I said, if we had an argument on this, I think both sides would find difficulties in each other's models. And I think that's the honest thing to say. And then I'm just willing to admit the rest is faith at this point. So
I can respect that. I'll bring it back to Chandler here in a second. Let me just ask you one more thing. If you more you look into things, if you do go back to theistic evolutionary, or if you do go back to an old deep time, would it phase you at all? Would it be you'd be like, oh, okay, that's cool. I've know more now, and I'm going back to a deep time. Would that shake your world up? Because I mean, if Cindi knew for a fact, let's say like, I don't know how she would get this kind of certainty, right? But let's assume arguendo, for hypothetical, that Cindi had knowledge that the Earth was deep. I think it would fundamentally shake her worldview, but I don't think it would you at all.
If
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, you're asking me?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
If I didn't quite get the question. If I found out that
no, I was asking Sal. I was going to try.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like I just don't think if Sal categorically knew without question that the Earth was old and there was deep time, I don't think it would phase him at all. I don't think it would even change his religious belief. I can't say the same with Cindi though. I think if with Cindi, if she learned, yes, everything we've been saying is correct as far as evolution, the Earth is billions of years old, we evolved this way, I think it would be a huge paradigm shift for her that would definitely change her whole worldview on everything.
Well, I would have changed mine. People have asked me that, Sal, what would change your mind? And it wouldn't even be the age of the Earth, that they saw the problem of abiogenesis or the evolution of eukaryotic components, which are the two things I study.
That would be interesting. Yeah, no, I respect that, man, actually. And I think they are coming close to, explaining abiogenesis. I think that maybe, one may not be in our lifetime, but in a few generations, I think it's going to be not only explained, but it's going to somehow be integrated into modern evolutionary synthesis.
And so, and just so people know, I've actually published in secular venues on these topics. So it's going to be hard to persuade me otherwise. But hypothetically, I mean, honestly, when I was an old Earth creationist, I said, well, maybe the Bible's wrong. I know that sounds heretical, but that's where I was. And I said, maybe it's mostly right, but it got the chronology wrong. That's kind of where I was for a long time. So when you asked if the evidence unequivocally showed that the universe is old, that would change my religious views.
Okay, well, that's fair. How about Chandler? I'll ask you the same thing to be fair. Let's say you found out unequivocally that the Earth was 7,000 years old. How would that change any kind of theological viewpoints? Because to me it would. To me it would. I would be like, oh crap. I mean, I'm going to have to reconsider my agnosticism here. If I found out the Earth is only 7,000 years old and all of science is wrong, yeah, I'm going to reconsider a little bit.
Yeah, it would definitely make me rethink, a future in any sort of scientific endeavor that requires natural science.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the corroboration is what sold me. The disparate fields of science overlapping, the successful predictions, just the making successful predictions and producing effective results is really the biggest thing for me.
Right, so let me ask you this. And by the way, I'm waiting for somebody to join. We're going way longer than normal, but this is fun. and if you got to go, Chandler, I don't want to keep you. I know you have actual in real life stuff, but I'm enjoying this. So if you can stick around, that's great.
Fine. I'm definitely enjoying this.
All right, so let me ask you, Chandler, what would you think would phase you more? That you learned the Earth was 7,000 years old, or you learned the Earth was flat?
Oh shit!
That's a hard. Yeah. Hey, on this show, man, you get asked tough questions, man. I don't fuck around.
Yeah, definitely flat.
Yeah, I think that would be probably more for me too. Yeah, I think that'd be
just
worse.
Because everything else is still round, regardless of how old the Earth is. All the planets, moons, stars are still round. Why the fuck would Earth be flat? Pardon my language.
Both of them would destroy science as we know it. I mean, I think.
Yeah, both would. But, yeah, but one is exponentially, fractally more absurd than the other.
No, I agree. I agree with you on that. Cindi, what do you think? What would phase your worldview more? Learning that the Earth was billions of years old and that it is deep time, or that the Earth was flat? What would be more paradigm shifting to you?
I don't think I can answer that question.
Really? Yes. I think honestly, I'm not going to front. I think flat Earth is worse than the young Earth creationism. I think it's more absurd to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's silly plus
Yeah.
some.
I don't think it has a biblical basis. I don't understand why some people think that the Bible hinges on that, because I don't think the Bible teaches that at all.
I don't think so either. I mean, it is pretty well recognized, even in the scientific community, and historians will say that even back then, most of the educated people, if not all the educated people, realized the Earth was not flat. I mean, Eratosthenes, in an experiment, he was already demonstrating something they already kind of knew. But, you know, to have somebody in this day and age think the Earth is flat, I will never be able to process that, because it's just, at least with creationism, okay, you can make up some stuff, and you know, obviously creationism has a lot of I hate to say it, but apologetics. You don't find flat Earth apologetics. You don't find flat. There's nothing about flat Earth that just makes sense at all.
You might say it's dying.
Well, if you did you watch my last show? It was good. Yeah, with Reds. Great show.
Yeah, I love Reds so much. He is awesome. Shout out to Reds.
I will give a kidney for that man. I really will. That dude,
ugly man that I've never seen his face.
I don't say I love many guys, but I do love Reds. April Van Ryan for $5 Canadian says, if the Earth was flat, I'd rage quit science and get a big hat. Yeah, right. I'd be listening to Alan Jones at that point. April, at that point, I'd be like, hey, you know what, Alex, you're the wise one at this point. Just explain this to me.
Sorry. But the frogs really are turning gay.
Yeah. At that point, I mean, everything I thought I knew would be out the window.
Lizard people, New York.
We have a caller on the Skype call. I'm not sure.
Hello.
Who they are, but
hello.
So who's this?
You can call me Plato. I'm the guy in chat.
Plato. Okay. Are you a Platonist?
Sorry?
Are you a Platonist?
I don't know exactly what you mean by that.
Plato's
believes in Plato.
Platonism is the view that there exists such a thing as abstract objects.
Yeah, that's mathematical Platonism would be the view that sets and numbers actually have abstractions do exist. But Platonism has like the archetype forms, that there's this realm out there that exists.
That is non-physical and non-mental.
Right, that's non-physical, non-mental, that exists, these archetypes of shapes and things of that nature, and everything is just an emulation of that.
Yeah, I don't know if I am that or not.
You named yourself after Plato.
I just wrote a random word in.
Oh, okay. All right. So what do you got for us? What would you like to discuss?
Well, see, I've been trying to find a thing with proof that does not have a creator for about 33 years. And I can't find a single thing that does not have a creator that I can prove.
You're saying that creationists can't provide an example of something that doesn't have a creation that doesn't have a creator?
No, atheists cannot provide a thing that does not have a creator.
A priori knowledge.
Yeah, you can call it a cause if you want, but I call it a creator.
But there's no cause for a priori knowledge, right? A priori knowledge exists independently of observations and empiricism, so it's outside even science. You don't need science for a priori knowledge. You don't need a causation for a priori knowledge. It's knowledge that cannot be wrong because it's necessary, because it exists in all possible worlds.
So what is a thing with proof that does not have a creator?
I just give you an example. A priori knowledge. Why do you need a creator for a priori knowledge?
That's not a thing. It's not an object.
In mathematical Platonism, it is. Which, by the way, I'm leaning to. I've always said I'm a nominalist because it's simpler, which it is. But I've been reading some papers, and I can't find the paper I was reading, and I closed my tab, and I can't find my history. I got to find it again, because it was a really good paper, and it was moving me towards mathematical Platonism. And Quine's indispensability thesis is actually a good argument for mathematical Platonism as well.
That's the thing. Even numbers, the axiom of numbers are created. You must first create the thought that 1 equals 1. In order to have the axiom of numbers, you need the primary axiom, the axiom of creation. And there's more observable observations of creation than numbers, because every number is created.
Why does it need to be created?
Because it exists.
Well, it exists platonically in a platonic realm. I mean, again, if you go to mathematical Platonism, but I'm not seeing your argument. I mean, do you agree that like something like the law of identity of all of x equals x which is a priori knowledge, right? It's not experiential. It's not something we derive. It's not something we find by experimentation. It's not empirical. It's a priori knowledge. Science doesn't show anything for it. It's something that is true because it must be true. It's a necessary, right? I mean, if it's necessary, then I hate to say by definition, but in this case, by definition actually works. By definition, if something's necessary, it must be true in all possible worlds. So I don't know why you need a God for that.
Yeah, I'm
No, I
sorry. I'm
don't.
kind of confused because I'd say that life wasn't created. Like an example of something that wasn't created. I mean, unless I'm missing the mark here.
I don't think you are. I think he's arguing that the atheist has to say, hey, life came from non-life, therefore it was created. The only way it could be created was from some kind of divine being, which I don't think follows. There's no logical argument for that.
It kind of
No,
seems like a
but-
puddle
He's
analogy
saying
to
that
me.
you can look at anything that we see, a human, a plant, a dog, and say that it's created. I believe that's what he's saying.
Well, it was created by parents and biology. Again, I don't subscribe to the principle of sufficient reason, at least not the strong version. So I don't think there's an absolute relationship between cause and effect. But
Even created then is kind of silly because they provided the genetic material.
Yeah,
They didn't like grab the carbon out of the air and
put
form a
it,
baby.
yeah, nobody's got together and said, I'm going to take this, all these things and put them into this and blender.
Like
and
this
get a baby.
banana is going to
Yeah.
be my baby's left hand
Now, I
when I
mean,
eat it, digest it.
Plato, you
Yeah,
do-
but they brought the sperm and the egg. Your parents are your creators. You have two creators. That is a thing with a creator.
I think that's kind of nebulous use of the word creator, though.
yeah, I do too.
Let's define
Robert,
creator so we have a common understanding what the word creator means. This is the Oxford Dictionary's definition: something or someone that brings something into existence. So now you're going off about gods. I don't believe
first of all,
gods.
I will tell you, I don't do definitions when it comes to like descriptive things. Oxford, Webster, it doesn't matter. Those are sensu lato and they're synchronic definitions. You cannot get a prescription from a description. I call that argumentum ad prescriptarium.
And it's not like the parents brought the elements that
Right.
formed the zygote into existence.
Yeah, I
So,
mean,
they
we-
didn't create the elements or the molecules.
Yeah, sure.
But so-
Me and my ex, we created our daughter, sure, but it wasn't something we did consciously. And you recognize the four forms of Aristotle, right?
Yeah, and the word creator doesn't define anything about consciousness. When a volcano creates new land, is it aware that it's creating the land? No, but the land did not exist before the volcano brought it into existence.
But it sounds like you're anthropomorphizing certain things, like
We call it land because
Yeah.
it's above sea level, and if it were 2 feet below sea level, we wouldn't call it land. I don't know.
Yeah, but the land was not there before, just like you were not, nor your awareness. Your awareness did not always exist
Sure.
up until.
Right. I agree with that.
Therefore, you actually bring your own awareness into existence. So.
Well,
Shit.
I don't think it's reflexive like that. I don't think it's self-referential. I mean, we didn't will ourselves into existence. That'd be self-refuting, be circular. Right?
I think Chandler actually made the point about who brought the chemicals into cohesive.
Well, I was being flippant when I said who. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
for me, it's a what.
Yeah,
would
I mean,
be like, who causes thunder and lightning? No, it's not a who. We know what causes it.
well, yeah, that's the efficient cause, right? In Aristotle's four causes, the efficient cause is the woodworker making the birdhouse or whatever, right? The efficient cause is that agent that's doing that, but there's other causations that are independent of the agent, right? There's the formal cause, the efficient cause, the material cause, and what the other one is.
Well, I don't think that there could be just magnetism or gravitational pulls that would pull chemicals together and create an organism.
Nobody's suggesting otherwise. Nobody's suggesting that. We
It had to be an intelligence.
well, see,
Or
just the fact that these things obey the laws of physics.
With a plan, there had to be a plan as well as an the power to bring the chemicals together and the plan to follow.
Chandler, let me read this real quick, then I want you can take that. April
Sure.
Ryan for 5 more Canadian says an earthquake has no creator unless tectonic plates create it. If rocks can be a creator, what does that mean for your argument? Yeah, again, I think these are semantic usages, right? Words connote certain things, and when you say creation or creator, again, there's no intentionality of a volcano when it creates land, right? There's no intentional states there. And so there's nothing to me that indicates that life to be created required intentionality. I don't see any leap there.
I've already said I don't. The word creator itself, the way I define it, doesn't have anything about intent or being omniscient or any of this.
Yeah, I agree with that. No, I agree with you there. But you hold that life. I assume you're a theist.
No, I am a truthful atheist.
Okay, so you believe that there are no gods.
There's no gods, no.
Okay.
I do believe people in their minds create gods, but that is not a common reality we share.
Sure.
So God technically does have a creator. It's men, but men have a creator that have creators that have creators that have creators.
But those are creating concepts, right? They're not creating ontological presence. A Superman is a concept, but there's no ontological status of him that exists, right? There's nothing there. It's just a concept. So you're saying men create these concepts of gods, which I totally agree with you on. But you don't think there was actually a being that has intentional states that said, "Oh, I want man to exist," and then created this extant world for us. Actualized of all possible worlds, he created this one, which doesn't make much sense because I don't think this is the best of all possible worlds. But assume that it was. You don't think there was some intentional being that did that, right?
It wasn't a man. It's the definition states a person or thing. I believe there was a thing that definitely created this reality because the unanimous observations I have that everything has a creator.
Again, don't go by definitions like that because you're using them prescriptively, which is confusing. Sure, if you want to talk about principle of sufficient reason, there's something called necessary beings. And a necessary being is something that must exist. And you can actually say, some people have argued that quantum fluctuations are necessary, right? And then the universe came from quantum fluctuations, right? Now, I don't necessarily
where do they come from? Vibrations, right?
Well, they come from the fact that they are necessary. And if you argue something is necessary, it means it cannot be any other way. Now, what makes them necessary, who the hell knows, right? I couldn't even venture a guess. But that's not the point of the argument. So when you're saying the universe had some kind of necessary, or universe has some kind of cause, sure, if you do this regression and you go back to whatever the initial conditions were, sure, they might have came from some necessary being of quantum fluctuations, but that's not an intentional being, though, right?
Yeah, I agree. I'm not saying that this thing has to have intent, like theists do.
All right, Chandler, you want to weigh in on that?
I was kind of thinking, I was a little sidetracked. I was looking at something that made me want to respond to something Cindi said earlier. So I apologize if I'm a little aloof on this topic. To me, it's kind of it's
philosophy. It's definitely philosophical in nature. There's no question.
Yeah. No, I really don't have much of an opinion about that. I mean, I agree with him that I think gods are a human creation. I don't think that the origin of life is an especially mysterious concept when you consider that DNA likely evolved from RNA, which itself evolved from simpler precursors, just obeying the laws of physics and chemistry. For me, it's kind of a non-issue. I mean, I know it's a huge issue for creationists, but for me, it's
no. And I get that, but I will play devil's advocate for a second. The facts are that, and this is not a fine-tuning argument. I'm not trying to do a fine-tuning, but the facts are because of the way the universe has these quantifiable rules to how it works. For some reason, RNA, DNA, these things are able to somehow produce life, right? Which I think is miraculous in some ways. And I'm not trying to use it in the spiritual sense, but it is pretty impressive, right? I mean, that for some reason, life is able to come from these.
It's the universe's way of knowing itself.
Well,
which is,
yeah, Babylon 5.
Lawrence Krauss said.
Yeah, well, that comes from Babylon 5.
Okay, I didn't ever watch that.
This is something along the line. The universe is what is it? The universe.
Life is the universe's way
of knowing itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I and the fact that we are the only planet that we know of that has life on it, that to me is impressive as well.
Amino acids on asteroids.
Oh yeah, no, we found all the amino acids.
Amazing.
Yeah, we found all the precursors. Just recently they finished that, I think, right? Just recently they found with some other, was it 20 amino acids? Is it 2021? Sal, you
24 total, right?
How many amino acids are there?
21, 28.
22 that are not coded for by the ribosomes. They're kind of in the translation process. So 20 is a good figure.
2021, right? I mean, it's a ballpark. Okay, so we remember obviously when with the Urine Miller experiment, and the first one they found like 6. They went back and they retested. And they found quite a bit more, and then they've done the test. They've done the test under different atmospheric conditions and found many more, but they never discovered all of them in nature that could be produced. But now that they found new meteorites just recently, they found these other amino acids. They found all these different precursors, but that's fine. But still, having those precursors come together to form a double helix that have these nucleotides, but with this phosphate backbone, to me, I think it begs, or it raises the question: how is it that these laws of physics allow for such a thing? What is it that makes them so amenable to have DNA create life? I think that is something that might probably be more in the theist's favor, marginally so. But again, I think we're in the fledgling understanding of these types of biochemistry.
To me, it's kind of like an elaborate look at the trees argument, And
quite possibly, it's still impressive.
It's still very impressive. Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm so passionate about biology in general and evolutionary biology. I love the way things work, not just on a microscopic level, but even on like a nano level, like butterfly wings, the way they reflect light on a nano level. Like, it's so amazing. Just the intricacies of it. Like, there's more to discover than I will ever know.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a look at the trees argument. It's a look at anything argument, and there it becomes an axiom. It's like, why do you believe every 2 equals 2? Have you observed every 2?
Don't need to.
How do you? Yeah, and the next 2 will equal 2 even without observing it, right?
Because it's a priori. It's not a posteriori, right?
Because all 2's previous have equaled 2.
Well, mathematics is something that you don't need to observe. It's not a posteriori. Mathematics is something that we can deduce by reason and logic, and so by that type of knowledge, that a priori knowledge, is not it doesn't need to be observed, right? So x equals x doesn't need to be observed. Yeah.
Can I ask Plato something?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Plato, back to your question, why would you start with that question? Why were you saying? I think your question was insinuating that you can look at anything and see that it had to be created. Am I correct about that?
You can prove it, yes.
How? Elaborate.
See this text in the chat, for example? I can show you the video of me typing that, okay? I'm the creator of that text. It's not simply appearing from nowhere, like the supposed Big Bang.
And you think that's true about everything we see?
I don't think it. I know it.
Then I don't understand. You seem like you're making
that's
argument.
That's why I'm here. I'm here to try to find a thing with proof that does not have a creator, and everyone seems to say the same thing. And then I tell them what created the thing they say, and I don't know.
I don't think. I don't think numbers have a creator.
What is it?
Yeah, men create numbers.
No, I don't think so. I think the numbers exist. We just put a label to them. We just put a symbol to them.
You've seen a 3 on a hill.
No, it's a priori. We don't need to observe a priori by definition. That's not numbers are abstract. They don't. A priori means they are something that we can know without observation. Right? A posteriori means that we observe it, like for experimentations in science. So these numbers, they exist regardless of if man never came about, these numbers would still exist. It's just that we have given them identity as far as like, okay, we're going to call this 1. We're going to represent it with the symbol 1. But to a mathematical placeness especially, these numbers are in the abstract realm that exist regardless if we ever came about or not.
This person in the chat wrote, sorry to cut you off, Cindy. This person wrote Watchmaker's argument. No, this is the everything has a creator observable proof.
But why do you say that? Why do you say that? What is it that makes you feel that way?
Name the one thing with your proof. Show me the proof that does not have a creator.
I've said 5 times.
No, you have not.
Who created numbers?
Men.
No, we created the labels to give the numbers.
Numbers are a concept in the mind.
But
men.
These are necessary things that must exist in all possible worlds, which means they are necessary. That means they're not contingent upon anything else. You're taking something that is necessary, and now you're saying it's contingent upon man, which means they're no longer necessary. They're by definition non-contingent.
Can we get off the number thing and go to a monkey or a tree? Look at a monkey or a tree.
Look at the tree.
Plato, and tell me, why do you look at a monkey and think that he had to have a creator?
Because I can see the parents bringing the sperms and the eggs together. And these atheists like to be tricky and use the word form. But it's funny because if you read up the definition of formed or form, it has the word create in it.
It's semantics. Stop bringing up definitions. It doesn't work that way.
It's English. It's used the English the best way to describe the reality. That is the purpose of creating the language.
I just looked up the word form and I don't see create or
it
creation.
says
The physical shape or configuration of something.
Okay, read
a
the one.
particular way in which a thing exists or appears.
Now read the one right under that. Did you Google
manifestation?
Here, did you Google form?
See, it was used as a verb.
Have you ever?
It contains the word create.
Plato,
there you go.
Plato, have you ever heard of what's called mereological nihilism?
No.
Okay, mereological nihilism is it's kind of complicated but simple. It's the simplest way to describe mereological nihilism is that objects don't exist. They're just reorganizations that are called primitives. Let's say atoms. Okay, atoms would be considered primitives. So, like my cup here, which you can't see because of the green screen. It doesn't really exist. It basically all it is a bunch of atoms in a configuration, but there's no actual ontological presence there of a cup. Because same thing with like a picture. If you have a picture that's made by a dot printer, you have all these dots, right, that comprise of like say 300 or 600 DPI, and you look at it, you see an image, but is there actually anything there? It's just a picture, right? But we still say, oh look, there's a picture here, okay, because we recognize the form of the picture, but this is comprised of primitives. Mereological nihilism is a very similar concept. Is that there is nothing other than form. That it's just the arrangement of these primitives into a certain form. That form we're going to call a cup. Matter of fact, that's the whole basis, what's called formalism. Or not formalism, essentialism, right? Essentialism, there's a certain property that exists or a certain shape or whatever that, what is it? Essential? Not essential. What is it? It's not formalism either. What is it? What is this? Oh my God. What is it when it's based upon the form? That if it acts as the form, that's what it is. But if you have something like
Antikythera mechanism.
No. Like if you have something that acts as a table, then we call that a table, even though it's not really a table, but it's acting as a table. It is taking the use of being a table, and it's not formalism.
Functionality.
Functionalism. Thank you. Functionalism.
There you go.
Jesus Christ.
We got there.
This functions as a cup. God damn it! It's late. I had a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
This functions as a cup, not because of its, because of anything about it, other than it functions as a cup. That's it. It functions as a cup. Functionalism. God damn. It's getting late. Okay. Yeah. All right, we're probably gonna wrap it up anyways. We're gonna need a part 2 in this. April says, "Can I uncreate your chat? What does that make me, an uncreator?" Yeah, that's the Thanatos, or what was it in Star Trek? Thanos. What was it in Star Trek with the great cosmic? No, the great cosmic filament kind of thing that was just to make uncreating everything.
Mm.
But anyways, we hope
not as good as my Star Trek.
Way more complicated than it needs to be. I think all he was trying to say is that life only comes from life.
Why?
Which is not evident.
Not just life, even non-celled non-cell things like rocks. Where do they come from? Where's sand? What does it come from? Decomposing rocks are the creator of sand.
Well, you're talking about precursors. You're talking about a causal relationship, which, by the way, Shao will probably tell you, not everything has causations. I mean, nuclear fission, like weak decay, doesn't have necessarily causations. Spontaneous fission doesn't have any causations. There's no hidden variable in the system. So
just because you don't know the causation doesn't mean one does not exist.
No, it's impossible. There is no knowledge. There's no information in those systems. Matter of fact, all local hidden variable models have been discounted in quantum mechanics. They cannot possibly be because of Bell's inequality. So it's not a matter of not having the information or the knowledge. It is there literally is nothing to know. All local hidden variable models have been discounted. Global, not so much. There can be global hidden models, like in pilot wave theory. But yeah, it's just not a matter of lacking information or knowledge. There's just nothing there of why fission undergoes, particle undergoes spontaneous fission as opposed to some other particle. You have, even in the atom, when you have protons being converted to neutrons through beta decay, what is it that makes one proton last thousands of years and another one seconds? Who knows? I mean, there's nothing, there's no rhyme or reason for it. It just is. It's a brute fact that two particles are going to decay when they want to decay. It's not even stochastic. It's just pure randomness. It's not even stochastic. It's just as bad as random as you get is nuclear decay. That's why, by the way, quantum cryptography is so important in computers, because with quantum cryptography, it's unbreakable. It literally is unbreakable because there's no information to be had, and if anybody violates the system, it's aware of that, and so you know that somebody's been in your system. But as far as like breaking the code, you cannot do it because it's completely random.
Now, Steve, you said radiometric decay was random. Why did they decay at the rates they decay? And you're saying it's random, it just is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not random. It's actually highly precise, which is why they use it for a clock.
No. What I mean by random is the individual particles. For example, if I have 100 particles of something, and let's say the decay rate is 5,000 some odd years, right? Why is it that these half decayed in 5,000 years and these didn't? And then the next half-life, why is it that these decayed in 5,000 years, which have been 10,000 years, but these didn't, right? And then you're down to two particles left at some point, and one of those particles has lasted tens and hundreds of thousands of years. When another proton decayed in the first 5,000, what was the difference?
That's bizarre.
There's no explanation for it because it's just pure randomness. There's nothing at the quantum level to describe it.
Sorry to cut in. I'm actually new to your show. This is the first time I'm here. Do you guys?
You don't know who I am? I was kidding.
I live.
That hurts so bad.
Oh God, that's right. You got a lot of backstory if you don't know the history of this show.
I was just wondering, do you guys what do you guys consider yourself as, atheist, or like what do you define?
He really has no idea who I am, does he? It's not like I'm some big person. I mean, yes, this channel, by the way, has been mentioned in Forbes.com twice. It has been mentioned in Soap Opera Spy recently. But no, I am pretty well known in the atheist community as the a-holy pope of agnosticism.
Oh, okay, cool. So you're not
the a-holy pope of agnosticism. You're not my Twitter. It's on my Twitter thing. Cindi, you're on my Twitter.
You're not like Matt, who claims the universe does not have a creator.
Matt Dillahunty?
Yeah.
Me and Matt don't get along any longer.
Yeah, well,
Matt
he's kicked me off. He's kicked me off his show 5 times.
Yeah,
so.
well, okay. First of all, my ex co-host had been on the ACA. Shannon Q started on my channel. She's on the ACA. There's been other people I've involved with that are involved with Matt and Jimmy Snow, who is one of the most disreputable, dishonest people I've ever met in my entire life.
Are you still friends with Shannon Q?
Yeah, I mean, I got nothing against Shannon. I think it's more on her end. I mean, I think she's still
Apology.
Yeah. Oh, Apology I adore. Apology is just simply brilliant. But it sucked that Shannon unfortunately believed Kyle, and it sucked. It really does. I nothing against Shannon at all. I have the utmost respect for him. Again, I created a show for her. Let's talk about you with Shannon Q. But yeah, no, I go way back with the ACA, dude. But Matt, he's not as open-minded as he appears to be. He also sided with my ex-partner. And called my ex-partner's boyfriend a drunk, saying that testimony was based upon the word of a bitter ex-boyfriend or something like that, which was really uncalled for. Plus, to kind of find out that my ex was literally lying to the court. I mean, he got busted for submitting false evidence. So I got some personal issues with Matt. Plus, again, I don't think he's open-minded, and I certainly don't think he's intellectually honest. Because people that have read my work will tell you that the logic is pretty good, the reasoning is pretty good, and he won't even address any of my arguments. And I find that to be dishonest. Matter of fact, it's funny because even Dr. Safadi had put my atheist semantic collapse argument on CMI's webpage. One of his articles he wrote. He liked my semantic argument, and he put it on there, even though he knows I'm not a younger creationist by any stretch of imagination. He liked that argument. Why? Because it's logic, and logic is objective, right? So, anyways, yeah, that's who I am. I'm agnostic.
All right, respect. Yeah, see that's I thought you had the same position as Matt, where you deny the reality as a creator, and he knows that I don't believe creator and God are the same thing. He knows I don't believe in a God, and he always goes, "You're God," when I ask him for a thing.
No, it sounds like, if you get a chance, go to my other channel, Steve McRae, and watch a review I did with these 3 Muslims talking to Aaron Ra about necessary being. And Aaron was still trying to relate necessary being to being a god, and that's not the case. Although I think he recognized at the end, because he was conflating, he seemed to acknowledge that it was probably a necessary being. Now, I tend to brute fact, right? There's only really 3 things for what you can have, and this is somewhat relating to the Munchausen trilemma or Agrippa's dilemma, is that 1, you can have infinite regress, you can have a brute fact, which is contingent, or you can have necessary. And so I'm not convinced something has to be necessary, but I do go to brute fact, which means I have no idea what the causalities are, no idea the original conditions. But to a physicist, they might say, well, yeah, quantum mechanics says that you must have, for whatever reason, these quantum fluctuations, and out of that, it can be determined mathematically, at least, that a universe can come from that. That has been demonstrated in the scientific literature. That would be necessary, right? So, because the quantum fluctuations at that point, if they're necessary, then the universe comes from that out of a causal relationship, which is contingent. Because I don't know anybody who really argues the universe is necessary. I think that'd be a hard sell. Is that what you're arguing?
No, I wasn't arguing that the universe is necessary. I was just arguing that everything I observe has a creator. And
no, I didn't say that. I was saying that you're saying that the universe has some kind of created, like what would be the quantum fluctuations.
Yeah, you could call it a cause if that makes you more comfortable. But yeah, okay. I what I observe is everything else does, and I kind of do the same thing with math. Like every 2 I've seen has equaled 2, and I don't know if the next 2 will equal 2. I haven't seen it, but it is a good assumption that it will equal 2.
Well,
and I do the same thing.
That's where I think you go wrong, though. I would get it if you get a chance. Look into the difference between a posteriori and a priori. You don't need to observe something to know it. You just don't.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know what created the universe, and that's why I assume the next 2 will equal 2. I assume the next thing will have a creator. The next thing being time,
but that,
the universe.
That goes in infinite regress then.
Yeah, what's wrong with the infinite regress? Why can't that be a possibility?
Okay, so logically speaking, there's nothing wrong with infinite regress. The problem with infinite regress, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Grim Reaper paradox. There are some really good thought experiments as to why a past regress probably is not metaphysically the case. But I'm not going to get into the Grim Reaper paradox right now.
Infinite regress stops at where you get to what created time, and what created time is whatever set the first object in motion. All right, that's allowed our
prime mover.
Allowed our concept of time to even exist. And so, is there a before time? No, because there's no time, right? So your infinite regression stops there.
But that's not infinite regression then. At that point, it's just going back to a brute fact or going back to necessary. And so you don't have past infinite regression if at some point time didn't exist. Now, you can model down to t equals 0 using what's called Hawking's boundary proposal that I was fortunate enough to be able to talk to Krauss about. But using imaginary time and distance formulas, you can get to t equals 0. But beyond that, makes no sense. It's nonsensical. So that wouldn't be past infinite regress.
All right. Well, I'm gonna hop off here, guys. Thanks a lot for trying to give me a thing that does not have a creator. No, I respect. You got a new sub, anyways. Have a good day.
Thank you, buddy.
Good stuff. Thanks for the call.
Bye, Plato.
Yeah, we are going to wrap this up. I like to hear that. I like when people call in, have different viewpoints. This show is not to be confrontational. It's to be, communicative. This is a show about having discussions, right, wrong, or different.
Can I do my big takeaways real quick?
Yeah,
Or
do some takeaways because I got to do this for my mod real quick. She asked me for something, so I got to take care of my mod.
So the big question is, Young Earth's creationism dead? To borrow a line from Cy 10 Bruggenkate, it's dead. It just doesn't have the courage to lie down. No, I think Young Earth creationism will continue to entangle itself in culture wars on the side of Christianity in an attempt to maintain the cultural impact that it has had over the decades, centuries. I think we'll see a lot more cheerleading against women's reproductive rights in the coming future. And then that's pretty much it. I did want to mention to Cindi that I don't think you're stupid. I just think you're wrong. But I can tell from this discussion that you are passionate, very passionate, and you seem to know a lot more about radiometric decay than I ever care to know. I was trying not to.
Cindy's got a great heart. That's important. She's got an amazing heart. And been through a lot. She's been through a lot.
Thank you, brother. I think that it's important to not villainize Yek, because not all of us are bad for society. And a lot of really good science from way back in the beginning was from Yeks. So I don't think you guys should be.
Well, I would say it was from theist. I mean, the only Yek that I know that actually contributed was the guy that helped build the MRI. But other than that, but again, theist was popular back, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 years ago. There probably were more scientists that were theists, and 1,000 years from now, who the heck knows? Right? There might not be a single scientist that's a theist. You don't know, right? But as far as like Young Earth creationism science, I don't know anything that's ever been produced from it. To my knowledge, nothing has ever been produced from creationism science. To my knowledge, Sal might be able to find something, but even MRI
I have a
was
whole
not based on
book
that.
of them.
Really?
Yeah. George Carver, Isaac Newton,
Those are
Faraday.
No, they were not Young Earth creationists. But again, that didn't come. The science they used was not based upon any Young Earth science. The science they used was based on science.
Well, I guess that's my point.
Yeah. Okay. I kind of get what you're saying, but it's not, again, Young Earth science. Young Earth science would be, okay, this science will use the math and numbers that will show that the Earth is 7,000 years old, and from that we'll have all these other theories come out of it. I've never seen it happen. But anyway, so
I was
go ahead.
talking about inventions and things that help humanity.
Yeah, like I said, a lot of them probably were theists, but I do agree with you that I don't want to villainize, all Young Earth creationists. I do attack the science that they go after and things of that nature, but I don't put you in anywhere near like a level of somebody like Kent. You know that.
No way. Twitter is so much more toxic. I mean, I've been biased and tainted, I'm sure, by just all the toxic conversation I've gotten into just about evolution. And I think, like, if you're, for me, it's the academic vandalism that it's I don't so much mind ignorance. It's the illusion of knowledge that I really have disdain for. I think if your understanding of religion requires you to reject certain aspects of nature, then that's, it's not just bad science. I think it's bad religion.
Yeah, I could definitely kind of agree with that. But here's another difference, though. Like, Cindi really does believe what she believes, and I have the utmost respect for that. That she's not somebody who's lying for Jesus. That would drive me freaking crazy, right?
I don't think you'd have her on your show.
No, and I've talked to her enough to know she's not, and so those are the people that are the people you want to have conversations with. You want to have the person who believes what they believe and have an honest dialogue, and I absolutely believe that she's like that, as opposed to you get somebody who I believe is like, again, for example, like get Darth Dawkins on. Come on, you can have there's no possible way any human being can have an intelligent conversation with that guy. Just not possible, right? Hey, Mike's falling down.
So insufferable. As for about 30 seconds, I thought that's where the last caller was going. Was down that Darth Dawkins.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to mention the other person's name, but Cindi knows of another person just recently that I had warned her about. That, again, you're never going to have a good dialogue with them. You know, Cindi?
You'll think that you will, and then you'll find out later that it sure as heck wasn't.
Yeah. No, you can feel free to tell my audience # Steve was right. I don't mind. You don't have to go into details.
Steve, you were right, honey. I'm sorry.
It's okay. All right, but anyway,
You went about
you just want to say,
others.
I do just want to lastly say thanks for all the hours and hours of joy, Steve, that you and all the cohorts have provided. I'm elated to see you running the show again.
Thank you.
And I am very much honored to be a guest, and I'm always looking forward to the next episode.
well,
It is very nice to meet you, Miss Cindi, and I'm sorry, Mobile1_Cordova.
Yeah, hey, Sal, you want to promote your stuff?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Steve and company, I really wanted to thank you for sticking up for Cindi through this time. You know, not a lot of young Earth creationists. I'm probably the only major creationist that came to her side. And so guys like really helped her in her time of distress. So I just want to express my eternal thanks for what you've done for her. And, you know, so in my book, great guy. Thank you.
You're very welcome, and it was very easy to do so because, again, I find her to be very honest, very genuine, and I look for that. And Chandler, to your point, I'm very happy to be back with the Non-Sequitur Show. I never expected it to ever get as where it was, but to me, that's irrelevant. I'm happy doing what I'm doing now. I'm happy having these conversations. I'm enjoying them. We still have, you know, mods and people that do care about these conversations, and that means the world to me. I mean, people know that I'm working, you know, in real life now. I've gone back to work, so I have to do this, you know, in between my schedules. Generally, I am mostly closing. I thought it was going to be more mornings, but I kind of let them know I would prefer night. By the way, all the crazy people come out at night. It's weird. It's a lot more work at night because you're dealing with a lot of crazy people in loss prevention. But you know, the fact that, you know, people are still supportive of the channel. I have new members and Patreons. It means the world to me, and I want to put out good content. I want to put out shows like this. This is what I enjoy, so I appreciate it, man. And hang on, and talk for a second because I got to fix my mic real quick. It's driving me crazy.
I'm gonna go drink a little bit more Glenfiddich to have some reheated pizza.
Oh, you know what? I might. Or, you know what? Oh, it's too late to order pizza. They close at 9. But no, I'm gonna make something to eat. I'm hungry. With that, guys, thank you. I think it was who became a member today. Somebody became a member at the very start, and I want to thank them. And I thank you for the super chats. If you want to become a patron, the link is in the video, link above in the video description. And I want to thank my mods for dropping by again. I don't know what the next episode is. I completely forgot what the hell is coming up next on Non Sequitur, so my apologies. But something's gonna be cool. All right, Sal, thanks for dropping. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Cindi, once again, always a pleasure. Sal, thank you very much. And Chandler, especially, love what you do on Twitter. Don't lose your account again. Keep up the good work and keep translating because I don't know what the heck some creationists are saying sometimes. Okay?
You never know what you're going to get.
Awesome, guys. All right. Thank you, guys, and have a good night.
Bye, guys.
All right.